10 years ago, a young adventurer named Jade came to the guild to take on quests, but she didn't even manage to get interested in the requests from the bulletin board. He was enchanted by the beauty of the blue-haired administrator, whom we call Garnet. For Jade, it was love at first sight, so he accepted her romantic adventure quest and confessed his feelings to the young girl. The story continued Jade's early deeds as a novice. She was quite pleased, having just defeated a small slime in the forest. He had a smile on his face. Jade was celebrating her victory like a young traveler with the title of flower rank adventurer. It was another step closer to his dream of becoming a great traveler. To achieve this, Jade had to collect moonstones from deadly monsters and retrieve their lifeless bodies from the ether. This way, travelers could place a flower mark on their hand, defining their strength among 4 classes: support, guardian, attacker, and enhancer. Jade was a proud member of the flowerbud rank, but realized too late the moonstones had small cracks, so his reward would be less than he expected. But this unfortunate adventure only fueled Jade's enthusiasm. He vowed to do better and eventually become the best hero and adventurer in the world with experience that no one else ever had. Jade, a guild adventurer from the capital, was looking for the recipient to collect his reward for the moonstones he found near the open window number 18. When Garnet's enchanted face met his, the shy boy blushed and trembled, staring confusedly at her captivating features, which held the gaze and attracted interest from everyone around. As a young traveler, he found time to bask in Garnet's magical attire and admire her stunning appearance. Finally, he noticed the name shining on her chest and learned the name of that beautiful girl, just as Jade should have already guessed, because he loved Garnet. But her silent gaze was also quite threatening, so the receptionist inquired if there were any problems. But most importantly, he finally heard the angelic voice of Garnet, even if the price of the stone was halved. Jade hurriedly left his own dreams behind to become the greatest traveler. He was completely immersed in thoughts about his beloved Garnet and hoped they could talk again. Jade took on another task from the Adventurers Guild plan to earn more rewards. Having finished one, he became closer to his object of affection, Garnet. Undoubtedly, Garnet remained in Jade's thoughts while he completed dangerous and deadly risky missions. Over the years, he managed everything, and the little boy grew up. 10 years had passed since Jade first met Garnet. The stone golem chased 2 travelers, cornering them in a situation where everything depended on their lives. They desperately put all their strength, enhanced by magical buffs, into directly destroying the giant monster. However, it caused no damage and could not move it from its place. True high-level parent travelers climbed to 7th place and even further weakened their efforts, spending them on supporting their companions. So they ran, saving their lives, and escaped the terrible encounter with death. The stone golem exploded right before their eyes. The girl could only guess that it was her grandfather, and he used some secret technique or something like that, not what actually happened. It turned out that the adventurer Jade, who was in 10th place, had already arrived and saved them just in time, defeating the giant golem. Both were shocked that the famous adventurer with the highest rank appeared here. It turned out Jade just wanted to defeat the monster, and the main reason seemed to be in Garnet, especially since Jade smashed the golem to pieces throwing a stone instead of using his precious blade given to him by Garnet. The adventurer, who was placed 7th, decided that it was some kind of self-discipline, but we all know the real logic of his decision. In the end, he touched the sword of the country and gave it to him, and Jade felt the presence of his beloved nearby as they returned to the capital. Jade advised the curious girl, if she wanted to become stronger, to continue her relentless search. That's what her parents told her. The power of love suddenly struck Jade and made him wonder how she found out the real reason. It turned out the 7th-ranked adventurer meant love for people in peace, not romantic feelings for the maid receptionist. Finally, Jade arrived at the Royal Guild of the capital. In his hands, he carried a large monolith that impressed travelers who truly admired it. They were also impressed that this young man. They called him a selfless hero, and he went to the regular cashier instead of the special one reserved for high-ranking travelers, not even knowing it. Jade felt shame and strong excitement. At that time, he waited for his turn, but did not let fear take over when it finally came, because moments to speak had arrived. To gain and hold all of Garnet's attention, that was exactly what Jade nurtured and lived for. In panic, Jade handed the monolith to the receptionist, said his name, and allowed Garnet to mentally examine the amazing material of the golem's conquest. Jade rolled on the spot with excitement, repeating over and over that he was falling in love. He used this moment to gaze at the girl he loved and envy the stone that even Garnet looked at. The way the receptionist closed her eyes and examined the mansion's stone from every angle was undoubtedly beautiful for a traveler who was falling in love. When the inspection ended, it was extremely depressing. Garnet reluctantly handed over the check for $50 million. Although Jade did not want to say goodbye and let go of this moment, he had already refused to bother the receptionist anymore, even though he hoped that over time their relationship would turn into something ordinary. One day Jade received his reward for completing the quest, and fortunately, during this, he touched the girl's finger, forcing him to keep a poker face, look into her eyes, and laugh hysterically from joy and disappointment because it all ended so quickly. Despite the plan for Jade not to give the check, he himself ended up in his house. But before that, the heroes were sent on a mission once again to repeat everything, hoping that someday this would make them good friends. Considering this, Jade left the Adventurers Guild and set off on his mission, unaware that Garnet was also replaying their previous romantic encounter in her mind. Meanwhile, two villagers in a remote corner of the kingdom argued about a request for help to tame a beast threatening their village. They expected travelers to come and save them. Not far from them, a little girl with vegetables in her hands heard the news and looked worried. The power to conquer the monster looked terrifying, yet they had no idea that the same village would become the location of Jade's next quest. However, Jade did not know the details of how exactly he would accomplish it, so he missed the moment when the townspeople praised the travelers. And he invited Jade to rest and enjoy his hospitality. Unfortunately, Jade politely declined meeting Garnet was her top priority. After that, the frightened girl confessed to Jade her terror was not over yet. Because the dragon had stolen her vegetables and was still prowling nearby, the middle-aged man quickly apologized, deciding that it was part of the girl's childish imagination. And Jade took this matter seriously and asked the girl to say in which direction she had seen the dragon. As soon as he found out, Jade informed the villagers that he was investigating the area and would check for signs of the beast, assuring them not to worry or cause unnecessary trouble, because it is part of being a traveler when night comes. Jade catches the departing thought and begins to guess that the dragon might have appeared as a herbivorous monster, but the terrible voice immediately breaks this assumption, ordering him not to take another step, and just leave the offering of food to be avoided so as not to irritate and cause unwanted consequences. But Jade still follows the voice, and suddenly bursts inside and sees a small child in shabby clothes instead of the fierce winged monster he expected. Jade is amazed at what a lonely little girl is doing here and right here. He recalls the order from the voices earlier and realizes this could be one of the rare dragons who can transform into humans. Unfortunately, this is no longer a monster. Ultimately, Jade thinks, if she is really the leader of the dragons, he needs to make sure and threaten Jade to devour her completely. Jade knows if it happens, her throat will immediately tighten, so he prepares another question to find out why this child looks human. It seems the reason is that she does not want to be fully filled in her original form and turn into a worthless person. Let at least those stolen vegetables allow her to hold on for a few more days. Despite the fact that the famous human hero feels shock and deep sorrow because of the girl's pitiful condition. And it turns out that she cannot obtain meat by transforming into a dragon, because due to rumors about the arrival of a traveler, which means that evil people have already appeared for her, they tame monsters and dragons. In the end, Jade agrees. The child returns to beast form only when stealing vegetables. But this question made the girl very anxious, because it definitely meant that the travelers knew about her existence and could quickly, then slowly attack this place. She hoped that Jade was the person who would save her from these conquerors, until she learned from the young man himself. One of the travelers was delayed a little longer than necessary for the little dragon to process the unexpected information in his head, but eventually she screamed in fear as soon as she understood the truth. The man ahead of her was one of those terrible travelers. So the girl panicked and ran in circles. Fortunately, Jade did not hit her and she exhaled with relief, calming down. Jade asked if she was a white dragon because the country protected her. Unfortunately, Jade belonged to those people who had to take necessary measures if she belonged to another species. And the child immediately ran outside to prove that she was a white dragon. Jade followed her, stopping her when she tried to undress. Instead, she enchanted Jade by showing her true magical form, which confirmed both of them have purity and mystery in their eyes. The eyes of this young man proved that the vegetable thief was not just some monster, but a white dragon who can transform into a pitiful place. So they entered the house where Jade taught the child a little history about her lineage, about who had long saved their country, and also about how his sword had a carved dragon emblem to pay tribute. Jade suggested meeting with the king and getting protection from him, and the nameless girls seemed to support this idea, so the next day they set off for the kingdom castle. The child on her path looked very excited, but as soon as they reached the doors to the king's throne, they were overcome with nervousness. But both eventually entered and met the king of the kingdom of Sundil. He decided that Jade had finally come to accept his offer to become the successor, in other words, to belong to them. Unfortunately, the issue was not what troubled the ruler of this state, when Jade showed the child she had brought with her. This allowed her to present herself as an innocent, intelligent, independent white dragon capable of dressing and feeding herself. Of course, this pitiful figure received the top spot in her constrained self-presentation. But we can all forgive him. He showed gratitude to the king, who acknowledged his country's debt to Jade and the white dragon. However, the problem remained. The king could not allow the little dragon to wander freely in the capital without supervision, which made the child tremble with anxiety. Jade decided not to leave the sad girl alone. So she fully took on the care of the child. The king agreed to provide protection, and now the problem was finally solved. They quietly, humbly stole some vegetables and left the castle. And the nameless girl thanked Jade for volunteering to be her guardian. And this made Jade think about what she would name the child. And now the nameless child gave Jade the right to name her. So the adventurer came up with a simple name, Doromi, and the white dragon gladly agreed to accept it. She practiced calling herself by this name. Unfortunately, as soon as they reached the Adventurers Guild, Doromi's excitement sharply dropped. There, where the dragon was so evil that it immediately agreed to stay outside, Jade was reporting at the reception. The faces of the dirty adventurers still troubled Doromi. But he looked out the window and glanced at Jade because he was worried. What if her mentor was there, and if this dragon spoke of danger, then trouble might happen. That bittersweet love he felt at that moment was the same as Doromi saw in Jade when she spoke with Garnet. Her face was glowing with so much joy, as if she had become a child again. No wonder the beautiful receptionist also conquered them. And her pretty face made the little girl think that the guild travelers in might not be so bad after all. After that, Jade finished her report and it was time to return home. When Dorom found out that their guardian had not done so yet, they returned to their home in about a year. Because, as everyone knows, she was busy wanting to meet Garnet. Of course, Jade promised to return home more often. He escorted Doromi back to her house and enjoyed the scenery along the way until they reached their destination. But since the lights in Jade's house were rarely turned on, the woman nearby could not help but wonder if she was finally home. A few minutes ago, Doromi told Jade that his attitude toward the Travelers Guild he belonged to had improved because he looked so happy. Leaving the inn, he did not understand this. The only reason Jade was beautiful was the receptionist. The great hero bathed in his imagination, an imagination that held the memory of how beautiful Garnet was. But Doromi could not wait. After all, they were not yet in Jade's home, so first they had to make sure it was really the same shining residence on the corner. Even the windows and the roof, everything was a symbol of a truly soulful home. Their gaze caught it, and they were both so excited that they managed to enter before trouble happened. And this was the moment to appreciate the idea and realize, this is a message from Jade Garnet. Meanwhile, they were just beginning to live together. The carpenters decided that the heart was for Jade's love for the residents, but let's not delve into other false assumptions and move into the lover's house. From the entrance to the bathroom and bedroom, the white dragon was constantly amazed. So he continued his tour until the girl reached the walk-in closet. Everything there was a bit strange. Dorom did not know about this, but he had already managed to anger the gentle girl. There were as many as 28 outfits and wedding dresses. All were Jade's favorite things that he wanted someone to wear someday after all this. These things were for his beloved girl, but she was not his official wife. The little girl wanted to meet to thank for being allowed to stay here. Jade finally fell silent. She realized that her clothes and women's dresses were completely ruined. Garnet's behavior was neither that of his wife nor his girlfriend. They were not even friends. But he could not tell Dorom about his romantic love for the head of the Secretaries Guild. Jade invited the little dragon to dinner to satisfy his hunger and distract him with an unexpected quest. After bathing, Dorom returned to Jade and expressed delight. He wanted to sleep on the soft bed as soon as he finished dinner. Like a hero who could not wait to lie down on it and share one bed with Garnet to feel the happiness of married life. Jade was burning with impatience to embark on new quests, but of course, dinner came first, so they both left at the same time. The neighbors acted as Jade's memory suggested about that kind old couple next door. But before his eyes appeared the familiar face of the guild receptionist. The appearance of the woman he liked impressed Jade. It was clear in his gaze love and sincere admiration for Granite. But there was also a small surprise. Jade did not expect that the girl was the same woman from the neighboring apartment. His thoughts stirred chaos as he desperately tried to compose himself and introduce himself. In the end, Doromi beat him to it as soon as he solemnly, as if nothing had happened, greeted Garnet and received a good night in response from the reception. Realizing that this was the perfect moment to talk outside of work, Jade also said good evening. But she failed to finish. She faltered due to trembling in her voice and nerves. Because it was the first time she saw Garnet in ordinary clothes. Jade's attention was distracted by thoughts about Garnet's impressive appearance as a receptionist, but she was lucky to snap out of the spell. And finally, he wished the woman good night. Their romance began to blossom, and thoughts of marriage were already spinning in Jade's head even if it was only a fantasy. Surprisingly, Garnet also felt relief after talking with Jade, deciding that the receptionist would want to communicate with her. But it turned out that Garnet only wanted to introduce herself as their neighbor. Meanwhile, Jade felt sadness and hunger. She really wanted to eat some meat. But Granat, curious about their relationship, forced Jade to reveal their names together, pretending that they were brother and sister. Jade knew Garnet already knew who she was, and this made her heart warm the happiest night of her life. It turned out Garnet always asked Jade's name because company policy required it, so this was no reason not to thank this man. Finally, I have nothing more to say. Jade offered to carry Garnet's bag until she found out that inside was her underwear. Fortunately, Jade had no intention of looking lustful, even as they grew closer. Learning that Granite is going to the public bath, Jade placed all her hopes on Doromi to invite the neighbors to their house and to the bath. The low dragon struck by the Japanese beam technique reminded the guild receptionist to be careful on the road, and this shattered Jade's hopes of impressing the woman he liked. Still, Jade was satisfied just to be able to look at Garnet's back. Right up until the moment he accidentally confessed his love, Jade panicked because White Dragon already knew about it. But Doromi advised, don't be shy because he loves her too and she won't be ashamed to admit it. It was even more like how a puppy loves its owner. Darom suggested that Jade give Garnet flowers, assuming that gardening was a hobby of the receptionist because she seemed a bit down to earth. Thanks to the dragon Jade's advice, she imagined a scene where Garnet looks incredibly happy with the bouquet he gave her, without any further delay. After a few weeks, both were exploring the abandoned plains at night. So Jade also defeated the Scorpion King, so today they set off on a new quest adventure. Although they were almost at the place, this time the target was waiting at a different point. The giant world tree stands on the top of the cliff. Doromi thought their target was someone's castle, but that's unlikely. In fact, they came for the star flower, which, as it turned out, was the best gift according to the owner of the flower shop, with whom he spoke over the past 2 weeks. It turned out that the world tree is the only place where the gift blossomed, but it is not possible to get there by the usual long way, especially since Jade could not bear to wait. Garnet was delighted with this gift. The great traveler climbed the rock and Doromi held on his back, and they flew at such a crazy speed that the dragon saw no need to transform and take off. But suddenly somewhere a scream broke off and caught their attention. Jade hurried to the world tree because she thought someone there was in danger and something terrible might happen. Jadin promised Romi that she would squeeze out full speed ahead to reach the summit faster than they planned. After that, they saw 2 women adventurers fighting off a giant earthworm, the one that trampled them with force. While the monster was about to eat the girls, Jade came to the rescue and smashed the earthworm with one kick so quickly and confidently, as if that was more than enough for a complete triumph. When the monster was finally defeated, both burst out in a cry of relief. They were alive and sincerely thanked Jade for the rescue. In response, Jade expressed her gratitude and told her fellow adventurers that she had gathered a star flower here. After the girls set it up as a protective barrier to shelter from monster attacks, it also later protected the blooming flower. They perceived it as the fulfillment of a cherished dream. Of course, the disaster also struck their guardian, and both were delighted with Jade's gift. On the way home, the flower began to bloom. They were even drawn to return and give their love to Garnet. But suddenly, when they saw that the star flower had withered, the joy on their faces disappeared within seconds. Jade was almost about to go to heaven from shock and stress. But fortunately, Doromi instilled hope in her. He advised the stubborn, depressed man to water it with any conditions of unexpected efforts while the quest still had not retreated. But Jade had nowhere to go, so they came up with a desperate way to lift the flower's spirit by giving it a few supportive words. Unfortunately, it worked poorly. They pressured Doromi to suggest giving it to Garnet, although she herself hoped that their neighbor, who knows how to care for flowers, could restore this gift to its original appearance. After careful consideration, Jade accepted their advice and did not waste time going. They went to the reception room and knocked on the door, but it turned out that Garnet was still outside. So they waited for the neighbor to return, but Jade began to worry again. She looked terrible standing like that in front of her own house. And she repeated 3 times that she was not a scary person. Finally, Garnet arrived and heard the man's strange statement, but Jade was not worried or embarrassed at all. She focused on the wet hair of the receptionist lady and her fresh appearance clearly just out of the bath. Both apologized for disturbing her late at night. Jade was not going to back down while gathering the resolve to hand over the withered star flower. Garnet looked closer at the cauldron and immediately recognized a real star flower in it. It took her a little longer to realize. The woman she liked was talking about her. Garnet could not believe that this problem could be solved like that. The star flower will receive new nutrients from the world tree, so they need to be removed because that will lead to such a situation. She apologized for not being able to help, but Jade understood. The one who should apologize is herself, not to present her with a dead, withered offering. Garnet was still ready to accept the gift under any circumstances, and Jade decided that it was better for the flower to spend the rest of its life in the company of the guild receptionist. But Garnet was not going to take the pot because she wanted to turn the gift into a marker to preserve its natural beauty in memory. Jade celebrated the victory by rolling in joy. So she thanked Garnet for finding meaning in it, and the rest of the flowers except the receptionist, who should be grateful. Instead, Maid Jade repeated her words and twisted them as if the flower was expressing gratitude to Garnet with this. The receptionist promised to cherish the gift and treat it as a valuable marker, but as always, Jade blushed because she decided that someday that person would definitely be appreciated. Moreover, the night was already coming to an end, so they ended the conversation with a few warm goodnight wishes. And to conclude, Garnet said thank you for the housewarming. Jade's face was increasingly flushed red, but it was time to do it again, so they both went home and Jade undoubtedly thanked Doremi for pushing her to do it. So that the great traveler could rely on the white dragon convince him that he can turn to her anytime. Jade allows him to express gratitude by taking care of the girl and giving her any food she wants. A constellation in the shape of a heart begins to form in the sky, so today is a fish day, as a gift for his emotional efforts. The next day, Garnet was reading a book in the Travelers Guild when her colleague suddenly interrupted their conversation. She told her blue-haired colleague that her bookmark was funny. In response to Garnet's curious question, she vaguely and unclearly explained that she made it from a flower someone gave her. That made them wonder who that person was, but when Garnet thought about Jade, he gave his colleagues a vague and uncertain explanation. He said that the gift was brought to her by a neighbor without her knowledge. Jade placed the pot as a treasure, but the receptionist rejected it as a valuable addition to the dilapidated collection. A month passed and Jade and Doromi rushed to the guild at full speed until the sun went down. Fortunately, they managed to arrive as the white dragon wished. They waited outside while their guard, as always, went inside. Jade felt a nervous thrill, yet still prepared for the moment she had been waiting for. The meeting with Garnet at the reception window. No time was wasted. The great traveler handed the moonstone to the neighbor so she could check the quality of the loot from the Chima conquest quest. Suddenly, the young girl's stomach rumbled. When he examined the moonstone, they both fell silent and Jade wondered where the noise was coming from. In just a few seconds she realized it was her beloved making funny sounds, specifically her hungry stomach growling. Jade enjoyed the rare sight, embarrassed, blushing, and charming Garnets because of the shame caused by that accident. Fortunately, she herself was always hungry, so Jade understood it was a bad idea, but she couldn't think of anything good. Therefore, the adventurer decided to go outside so Garnet's stomach wouldn't rumble again. Doromi was standing outside the guild. His guard was already waiting and immediately reported. She set a new record in counting a total of 18 bugs. They celebrated by eating outside the house. When they entered the restaurant, they realized, right now, besides them, there were no other visitors. It seemed a whole year had passed since Jade last visited this place, so the owner was very surprised to see the famous hero again after such a long break. On the other hand, the disaster was only thinking about food, and that was normal. When she ordered a large and hearty portion of meat broth, Jade chose seafood dishes. A few minutes later, the same delicious food was served. And it was their lucky day, especially for Jade, because it was her last order. Without wasting time, they dug into the food and ate it to the last crumb until they were full. He praised its incredible taste and recalled how they both savored the seafood and soup, then each immersed themselves in their own dreams about what the food tasted like. When a new client burst inside and sat next to Jade, she was shocked. The woman who came turned out to be a guild registrar. They were all waiting specifically for her. This made the traveler wonder why Garnet came to this restaurant. Could it be because she wanted to arrange a dinner date with me, as Jade assumed? Jade overheard Garnet ordering the usual food, so the receptionist was a regular client here. Yet Jade wondered what exactly the neighboring food hinted at until she found out it was no longer available. It turned out Garnet wanted a plate of seafood that was no longer there. Jade unintentionally disappointed the woman she loved, and for her, it was absolutely impossible to forgive. So Jade herself gave the fish to be prepared for the owner, but unfortunately, she gave it to Garnet. The restaurant owner decided that this was truly a big mistake. He forced Jade to belong to everyone and do work for the restaurant. But Jade did not do it for him. She convinced the owner to allow her to buy the ingredients herself. It seemed impossible. The supplies had already become scarce due to dangerous monsters lurking on the coast. Even that rowdy white dragon who stole vegetables could not forgive the sea monster. The same happened with Jade. She asked at the guild reception if they had a conquest mission for that creature. For Garnet, it was prepared especially for adventurers of rank 6. And since Jade was low level, she could not afford to take this task, and waiting for her quest to reach rank 10 was also impossible. Then a thought came to mind. What if he did not set conquest as a Federation mission? If Jade went fishing at sea and accidentally encountered a monster and ultimately destroyed it in self-defense, then everything would be fine, as Jade said. He decided to go to the sea and catch fish so that Garnet could enjoy his favorite delicious seafood. Soon Jade and Darom set off to Jade's villa near the place he bought 2 years ago for the sake of a beautiful sunset. Even though she removed the details of Garnet's adoption so that he would fall in love not only with the scenery, but also with her, in the end it all turned into a romance. They would kiss like this until the end of their delusion. But that day their goal still remained: to pick up the fishing gear for Garnet and their child that Jade once obtained so they could enjoy it. Jade didn't even think that Jade could use something to tame the monster. He just needed to go fishing with Doromi and wait for the sea creature to finally appear, gather the ingredients, and also a relaxed dinner with Garnet. Then Jade will do it quietly, homely, remember that he caught a fish and show off in front of the receptionist to bring their relationship closer. That's the whole plan for now. Eventually, the fishermen entered the harbor. It was gloomy, and the atmosphere was heavy because of the sea monster lurking in the shadows. It seems only Doromi managed to survive. When he informed them about the journey and transport, of course, there was a small boat for Garnet. But let's keep all misunderstandings that have already happened, so let's watch the sunset live without unnecessary words. They had already started fishing for the monster for the expedition, when some voice stopped them and didn't let them head to the sea. Jade turned around and saw a group of men with stern faces blocking their way to the plan to catch such a fish. The story about the restaurant owner who belonged to that man. He warned the travelers not to go because of the vision that happened 15 months ago. Despite the threat of the monster, Jade decided to continue sailing, although she knew her small boat was the best bait for the kraken. In this case, the problem was also with time, so Jade gave the fisherman a wallet with a coin so that he could rent a large ship and use it for his mission. Although the ship owner initially refused the temptation, they changed their mind as soon as they learned about the tragedy that Jade experienced. Thank you for your opinion. And no gloomy expressions remained on their faces. They were sure that Jade could tame the monster. The great traveler said he could not accept the fellowship's request to destroy Kren. He has a higher rank, so he willingly defends himself and defeats the enemy when it comes. He uses himself as bait and expects nothing in return. But for their bride, he returns the joy of delicious seafood that fishermen always catch. Such thoughtfulness of Jade impresses middle-aged men, and they allow Jade to use the boat for free and return to the owner a pouch of coins that she once gave him. Jade and Doromi set off into the very heart of the sea, and there, it suddenly turned out to be calm, without any monster appearances. The fisherman continues to catch fish calmly until Jade finally manages to catch her first prey. Success pushes them to suggest holding a competition. Jade does not want her guardian to take everything. It looks like Lady Luck is favorable to Jade. Despite their rarity, she manages to catch 5 white dragonfish. They change fishing spots, suspecting that their misfortune is connected to the location, because the little girl feels the seafood taking her bait. The white dragonfish happily grabs the bait and dies in DZ's hand, savoring the victory. But that joy turns out to be short-lived when they realize their catch is a sea scorpion, the very one known for its colossal power. The dragon freezes in shock and fear. He is stunned by the privilege of being human, and Doromi, bursting out in a scream of horror, announces an unexpected encounter with a sea monster. In panic, Doromi throws stones at it, trying to drive the enemy away. One strike to the body of the giant scorpion is not enough. It only rages more fiercely, to the point that their boat might sink. But Jade, who had already been sinking, prepared in advance. She reinforced the entire boat with magic that allowed her to freely attack the monster and transform into a successful person and sent it to the bottom of the sea grave if it existed. So the clash ended quickly, and Jade returned to the ship unharmed. They celebrated a simple victory, and now the conquest had settled. Both returned to the harbor, and Sane, through the little dragon, showed the fisherman a thumbs up, finally becoming a peaceful fisherman who could explore the sea. Jade was delighted that she could offer fresh fish, turn it into cooked seafood, and give it to Garnet for their romantic plan. Jerome and her guardian were hungry, so they headed to the restaurant. Just then Jade suddenly noticed Garnet on the way there. She had a very fiery voice, and she called out at the reception so energetically that Garnet could not help but remain silent. She exclaimed that their child had come a long way and could now talk to her crush without any problems, so she told about the fish they caught and the victory over the monster in the middle of their fishing expedition. Doromi's fishing expedition intercepted her explanation and told Garnet about the heroic deed. She threw a stone at the monster, remained calm, and looked it in the eyes without stepping back a single step. In the end, Garnet's feelings for Jade only grew stronger. She assumed that it was Jade who defeated the sea monster, so she asked her if she would go to the guild tomorrow. Jade wondered if Garnet remembered her promise to take on the mission today. As always, she knew the receptionist did not mention it, so she became anxious. Jade was not worried at all that she would be in the guild all day. On the second day, Jade blushed embarrassedly, not understanding why Garnet was so concerned about her safety, despite the fact that she was a strong rank 10 adventurer. Of course, there was a desire that became reality for the woman she liked to worry about her. Although Jade hesitated, she still thought. In the receptionist's eyes, she was truly an unreliable child, but in Garnet's eyes, she was not only a very strong and outstanding adventurer, rather a younger boy who needed protection. Jade looked happy when she asked why she saw in him a younger brother, not family. She knew it happened because Garnet had seen how he grew since he was a 12-year-old traveler. As a result, Jade felt happy and grateful to Dorome and Garnet for treating her like an ordinary person, not just one of the most outstanding adventurers, rather like a younger brother who needed protection. When Jade realized she belonged to Garnet, her brother, she no longer had a chance to become his lover. Yet this became a fatal blow to her mental and emotional health. There were no sibling relationships between them, or if there were, problems would have started anyway. Jade knew that Garnet was heading to the restaurant, so he, together with Dorome, invited her to taste the fish they caught. They would give it to the owner. Fortunately, the guild receptionist accepted their offer, and this led Jade to a romantic night in the city. Only he was savoring every moment, gazing at the stunning beauty of the woman he liked. He hoped that this meeting would go well, but unfortunately this experience would last forever. Everything ended in 5 seconds. The restaurant was around the corner, so Jade's chance to relax with Garnet, who was once a regular customer here, disappeared. When the owner appeared, he was already told that they caught the fish and about the success in taming the monster that was blocking seafood production. With sincere gratitude, he promised to prepare delicious food for Jade. Jade did not understand exactly whom the owner was referring to with those words. It turned out that Garnet gave the man a flower of thanks for the delicious food, and it seemed that this gift was more than just a sign of gratitude. Jade asked what was happening, but unfortunately the traveler could no longer eat there with Garnet. The owner planned to close the shop and live in the village with his daughter and her husband. Jasper Jade gave him a bag of coins as a pension fund, but the owner refused it for the first and last time in this restaurant. Jade sat too close to Garnet, their elbows even touched. And she cried because the shop was closed. No, it was just closed. Unfortunately, this will probably be the last time that the same once-in-a-lifetime moment happens. As soon as they finished eating, a white dragon and his guard attacked them and praised their deliciousness. Garnet saw them off with a gentle smile and then joined, so they together enjoyed this brief moment of happiness. One more moment and Doromi would already be outside with friends near the Adventurers Guild, telling the story about their today's journey. About how Jade defeated the Hydra with one blow, although she seemed to notice Jade's back. The children froze at Doromi's story and asked her to tell about an even more epic journey, but that was all, because Jade had already finished his report for the guild receptionist. Although his face was very sad, and it was quite possible that something unpleasant had already happened. We returned a few minutes to the scene. Jade and Doromi had just completed a high-level mission and were heading to the guild, as always. Jade was very happy to see his beloved the receptionist. Although she was not just beautiful, she was also incredibly happy because now she could keep their conversation with Garnet a secret, compared to how it was before. Maybe someday he would actually ask her out on a date. Cast aside the routine of waiting for trouble outside and spend time with other people's children while Jade walked to the reception window to bathe in the dazzling glow of granite. Garnet's face was not the same as before. Jade refused to be nervous and approached her neighbor calmly, introducing herself and giving her a stone that Jade liked. They spent time together every day with Garnet, and a happy smile shone on Jade's face. But the smile quickly disappeared as soon as the woman coughed. He was very worried about her condition, wondering if Garnet was suffering from a serious illness. Although Jade was worried about his neighbor's health, this time he did not ask questions and simply left the guild so as not to bother Garnet with questions. But still, this could be their last conversation. We go back a few minutes to the scene where Doromi saw her guardian in a depressed state, and immediately asked him what exactly was happening. The white dragon learned the whole situation and about Jade's plan to obtain medicine capable of instantly curing any disease, even if it was too severe. Jade refused to just watch someone suffer right before her eyes, especially since it was Garnet, whom we were just talking about. Doromi fully supported her friend, so they did not waste time and headed to the pharmacy. She planned to find a master who could brew the necessary medicine on a budget of 1 billion, which Jade had set aside for Garnet's recovery. In this place, wherever she looked, there were plenty of eyeballs everywhere, and it was undoubtedly horrible, even if it was me, the white-faced dragon. In despair, she screamed and begged her guardian to leave this place as soon as possible, otherwise they would be the next victims. Because of this, Jade assured the white dragoness that no part of her body would be touched, as she had state protection status. But it was too early to do this. She felt relief because he suddenly appeared. A woman, full of horror, stood with kitchen utensils in her hands, and it was clear that it was definitely not for cooking. Soren asked who Doromi was, but the child was so frightened that she desperately began to explain. Her taste would not match the desires of this woman, which was not a valid reason to be afraid. But Soren had just dissected several monsters for medical purposes. She even invited Doromi to watch. Okay, I'll do it. Return it to another notebook. Jade recognized Soren because it turned out they had met before when the merchant Coop was teaching the girl medical lessons. Moreover, Soren is the granddaughter of the pharmacy owner, who apparently is a very strict person. And this is exactly what Jade desires, because Coop could create effective medicine that would cure her. Unfortunately, due to the illness of Soren's receptionist deputy, it turned out that her grandmother had retired and returned to the village, so she could not help in this matter no matter how low the housing prices or something like that were. Jade could only think about this because the memory brought defeat and disappointment. The coup mixture is the best, but fortunately Soren is there to save the day and prepare medicine for him as a substitute for her grandmother. After some thought, Jade asked Soren to save the receptionist and relieve her from the pain she endured while managing the pharmacy. The pharmacist assured the great hero that she would be fine as long as she was under her care. After that, Jade told Soren all the symptoms she noticed and accepted the advice to track traces of extra over-the-counter medicine, because, in her opinion, it was not an ordinary cold. Since she could not gather enough information to conclude a serious illness, Soren could only avoid eye contact when telling Jade that special medicine was not needed. But seeing Jade's despair, she reluctantly took on the matter. With one injection, she immediately began brewing a potion meant to ease the patient's cough and fatigue. So Jade and Doromi offered help, and eventually he drank something red, brought inside in a glass, as she thought it was tomato juice. Juice in the sense that the red juice was flowing from the dragon. A little girl screamed as if she had just seen a lifeless body, and it seemed she would not recover for a long time. The place was filled with bad news despite the unfortunate incident. The white dragon coughed and wearily moved on. A strange price tag was hung on him, 30,000. Shocking greed, and in the most unexpected form. Someone would simply decide it was theft, given her budget of 1 billion, but now they got the medicine. Jade and Durham rushed to Garnet's house and knocked on the door, not caring that they would be called strange. Now the priority was recovery. As soon as Garnet opened the door, Jade finally sighed with relief. The woman he loved was alive and standing right in front of him. Without further ado, Jade hurriedly handed over the medicine. He himself was tired and coughing, and also expressed his concern after earlier seeing Garnet's condition. He returned to the guild, stunned by their reaction. Garnet was fine even without the healing potion. As it turned out, she had simply choked on a fish bone. It was nothing serious, but Jade apologized for making her worry. For Jade, it was natural to shout that he was special, and fought on to continue his path until she finally said it. At the most critical moment, his legs trembled, so he plunged even deeper into the statement about the special receptionist. And he told Garnet that he was different from all the others. His current feelings were similar to when he gave flowers to the owner of his favorite restaurant, acknowledging their efforts. Garnet took the medicine not for her own healthy body, but for the young girl who seemed to be in pain. After that, Garnet invited Jade and Durham to come in and see her flowers if they were not in a hurry, because a huge question mark appeared in Jade's mind. And his reaction was priceless. He could not hide how surprised he was. An invitation to enter someone's door, not to the woman who had driven him crazy with love. When he calmed down, they went inside, so Jade saw the reception living room, and he was overwhelmed with delight. Everything was visible on his face. It was true heavenly pleasure. And while Jade was turning over in his mind how he would sit at her table with Garnet and eat, Durham noticed slightly wilted flowers in the pot. He urged both of them to hurry and save their lives. They quickly injected their potion into the soil and witnessed a disaster. From withered petals, it grew into fully bloomed flowers. So he was the first to celebrate that wonder. Of course, Garnet felt joy from this. They now looked healthier, so she thanked them both for their help. Suddenly, Durham's stomach rumbled, warning the little girl that she was hungry. Garnet planned to go to dinner, so she invited them both to join to look for a new restaurant to dine at together. And since their favorite one had closed, of course, the dream became reality. It was an unequivocal yes to the great hero. She just kept smiling, which made the receptionist start to doubt, but Garnet barely paid attention and instead nudged Durham and Jade to go. The cheerful young man responded lively and willingly, but all right, let's peek into an unknown number of days later. Jade went on his own accord, recalling all the magical events of the last few nights when he entered Garnet's house, helped the flowers recover, and finally enjoyed a shared dinner with Durham. They got along as best as possible, and Jade couldn't sleep at night from an overdose of happiness. It seemed it would happen again this time, though, for different reasons. Suddenly, Jade heard a rumble nearby. Immediately, thanks to his enhanced hearing, he began searching for its source. And he found out that his neighbor was in danger. Jade rushed to save her and came across a frightened Garnet. She asked Jade, who held the 10th place among adventurers, to help. Everything became confusing. The woman could say that the place with the threat was her bedroom on the 2nd floor. Jade immediately felt something truly terrible was hiding there. Garnet was struck by this clue and decided that the culprit was a robber. Jade assured the guild receptionist that she would check the area and advised her to stay close while ordering the disaster to protect Garnet. Determined to put an end to this, Jade cautiously entered the room and began searching for the thief, simultaneously worrying about how dirty everything was there. But there was a clue indicating Garnet had fought with a stranger here, and that could not be forgiven. Jade quickened her pace and looked around and saw there was no one else in the room besides them. Garnet still suspected that the thief was hiding under her bed. Having forced Jade to check the area, they came across a creature that fled lightning fast. The traveler's gaze and grip made the frightened receptionist scream and tremble. He held a little girl as support, leading a reliable disaster behind him to reassure friends. Supposedly, they didn't need to worry because he was nearby. The culprit was a very tiny spider, which scares disasters for completely different reasons. Garnet was in shock due to the rapid swelling of his belly after learning he had eaten a spider, although there was no way to get rid of it now. Jade must get rid of this threat immediately, but it quickly slips away from his attempts and hides under Garnet's real clothes. The real call, because Jade can no longer catch it thanks to a high barrier. The surprising quest about a fatal rapprochement touches her romantic outfit despite the fact that Jade must show her bravery against spiders. So she closes her eyes and grabs it completely with one hand, and runs to the window to get rid of the culprit. Unfortunately, her beloved house for the beloved woman does not end as happily as Jade knows. She overdid it a bit and accidentally damaged Garnet's bed. For the receptionist, this is not a problem. But he even thanked the amazing traveler for becoming his hero just this evening. Having told him that he is glad, the best praise for his neighbor for our child can still be received from the girl next door. For them, it was already too late to buy a new bed. But Jade did not allow Garnet to sleep in one of those currently damaged, in case something happens in the middle of the night. So she offered to give him her bed, and Garnet was incredibly happy, until he first called two good friends from the friend zone. For Jade, it was one step closer to finally asking the waitress out on a date. So she excitedly returned home to bring the expensive bed and within minutes sent it to Garnet's house. The woman could not just take it after learning how luxurious it was. But despite this, misfortune offered to exchange beds, an ideal situation and a bold hope to break into the top 10 among travelers. Eventually, Garnet agreed to the White Dragon's proposal, and this really shouldn't have happened, even before they parted that night. Jade assured her neighbor that every time another spider appeared, she would run to his aid. Garnet relied on her, and it became another happy moment for the young man carrying the bed on his back. On the way home, Jade cried tears of joy while he stepped on it. Finally, he arranged everything in his room and sank into a state of distrust towards the garnet bed that stood in his house. After several panels, Jade inhaled the smell of the blanket for the first time and felt the scent of the woman he liked, which made him imagine as if Garnet was hugging him and enjoy good dreams in the process. Until this teenager understood something, his level of thinking dropped afterwards. But Jade did not look rested at all. Probably Garnet did not let her sleep. Then I continued, as you imagined. Meanwhile, in this city lived a young girl named Marin, who was on the way to the capital to begin the path to the title of a great traveler, one like no other known hero. Jade was telling about the sleepy adventure of Dorami, grumbling that today's quest kept them out until morning. But they still had to wait for the train before they could return to the capital. In a daze, Jade noticed that the girl had been looking at them for some time and asked if she needed anything. Strangely, they asked Marin for permission to look under their feet. It was answered by a low dragonling which flew up, taking off its boots first of all. The young adventurer just wanted to see what was under the seat, but her face sadly changed when she found nothing of what she came for. It seems Marin dropped her wallet and lost everything, leaving her without a single coin to spend on anything. Despite the fact that it was only the second day of this girl's adventures, Jade could only walk focused from amazement and anxiety. And as soon as she learned that Marin was heading to the capital's adventurer guild, it became clear her first task would be issued there. As soon as she heard this, Jade immediately smiled, especially because the novice's journey took her back to the very moment when she had just started. After all, Jade finally learned Marin's name and age. Marin was almost 12 years old, still a little closer to being allowed to register as an adventurer. Jade suggested buying Marin train tickets as a punishment. She brought hope to Marin because her journey was not yet over. Marin was left without any money, but the future traveler did not want that to happen. So they decided she would pay off with future earnings. Under such conditions, there was no pressure. Marin accepted Jade's offer, thanked her, and went inside to train before the journey to the capital. They would reach there by sunset, but it seemed that there would be no problems with accommodation for the young girl. When she told this to Jade, her sister also lived in the capital. She worked at the guild as a receptionist and was a woman who supported Peak Bloom. Perhaps this was the same as Marin, according to Jade. Support was the rarest of all roles, and the order of probabilities changed, from guard or attacker to support, and support became the most common. Although rarity itself was likely to happen, Marin turned out to be ready to support, just like Jade herself, because she aspired to become a great adventurer like Jade. The person Jade hinted at was actually incredibly unexpected, and these words hit the mark. But Marin, on the contrary, showed a glow on her too bright face when she asked both if they had ever met Jade, although her head was nodding to sleep. Dorami did not delay with the response and immediately revealed. Standing next to him was the same famous great traveler adored by the whole world. Marin was surprised and confused, but seeing the blooming crossflowers in Jade's hand, she was convinced. The man sitting before her was indeed Jade. It turns out this girl grew up and became a big fan. She wanted to follow Jade's paths, inspired by stories from her sister. Every time she came home and met Marin, she told about the traveler as an extraordinarily hardworking person. So Dorami wondered if there were any stories about her, but unfortunately there were none. A year had passed since Marin last met her. Her sister was still a modest little dragon, but Dorami was sure this year would be filled with her heroic deeds as a brave girl accompanying Jade. And she was ready to tell her epic adventure here and now. The train was still rushing, so they finally reached the capital and parted ways. Jade and Dorami headed home, and Marin waited for her brother to pick her up at the station. Fortunately, Marin was filled with motivation. She had promised to be the best and as strong as Jade once was. They waved goodbye to each other and set off on their journeys. Dorami was already terribly tired, and the dragon almost turned into a sleeping person, and all without transforming into cleaner, more comfortable robes, if not for Jade, who was already beginning to get used to it. Thus, the white dragon guardian lay on the bed relaxed and satisfied. Until at night, in the middle of sleep, he woke up to tell Jade that he was hungry. Jade immediately understood. Her night could be ruined, especially her sleep, because she was ready to rest. But it seemed nothing could stop the aroma from the imagination of freshly seasoned chicken and ribs. From those thoughts, saliva was flowing. So she decided to go for dinner before her saliva ruined the bed. As soon as they stepped outside the door, a familiar voice called them. It was Marin, who for some mysterious reasons was standing by the guild reception. Such a strange combination threw Jade off balance. Putting everything together and seeing them holding hands, she immediately came to the same conclusion. He could finally figure everything out, and Garnet thanked Jade for lending her money, confirming their suspicion about Marin's existence. Putting everything together and seeing them holding hands, she immediately came to the same conclusion. He could finally figure everything out, and Garnet thanked Jade for lending her money, confirming their suspicion about Marin's existence. Jade remembered how the little girl said. Her sister always said that Jade was super hardworking as soon as she came home, not even allowing the thought that she could be called Jade at all. And the highest praise she could receive was when someone got down on their knees and hugged her tightly. Again, it was one of those happy moments for our hero. But while he slowly climbed to Garnet Heaven by his own will to settle a debt with her as a replacement, Jade told her not to worry and not to rush with the payment. Helping each other means being good neighbors. He reminded the administrator that they were really friends, and such little things were always acceptable. Hearing those words, Garnet gave Jade a sweet smile. And for the first time, he told her inquisitive younger sister that he was really friends with Jade, and the traveler invited the maid to eat outside. And Garnet refused, for now they had just eaten with Marin, just came home. For a moment it became gloomy. Until Garnet calmed Jade down, saying they could do it again, and that on another day all four would eat properly. This time Jade was satisfied with the result, a peaceful night without any inappropriate thoughts. When the sun rose and rumbled at the door, Jade opened it, wondering who it was. Isn't it too early in the morning for someone to so obviously surprise her? As it turned out, it was Garnet, and she had an unknown reason to look for her specifically. Jade immediately pinched his cheek to check this was not some hallucination or dream, and no, it wasn't. So he focused his gaze on Garnet's amazing appearance. Because it was the first time he saw her in a skirt, and for him, it was unbearably cute, as it happened so rarely. Garnet usually wears pants, plunging her gaze into the abyss of memories, although there is a minor problem if you do this, staring at each other for a long time. Strangely, Jade shows that he has that woman's everyday clothes and that Garnet always wears them when she goes to work, so now he will do everything right. But that is later. First, let's talk to Jade without hesitation. Jade devotes valuable years of his time to being listened to, and he assumes, if Garnet is allowed to be asked by the adventurer whether he wants to go to the guild today, then it will probably be something good. However, as soon as she realizes that Jade will go there, her resolute face changes to despair. As a result, Garnet begins to leave, apologizes for waking him, and leaves the traveler impressed. He does not understand why this moment ends so quickly with just one question. But Jade does not let it end and tells Garnet to express her request the way she wants. So that he definitely hears it, especially since the secretary is trying to come here instead of waiting for him at the guild. He looks into the woman's eyes and advises her not to hold back and to rely on him. After all, they are friends. This gives Garnet the opportunity to show that she has a personal assistant, and through him to inquire Jade about her sister Marin. It turns out Garnet wants Jade to take care of Marin during the day. Garnet believes what will happen to her sister. After Jade learns that the woman he loves trusts him in this matter, his eyes open wide and he agrees to her request. They are tidying up Garnet because she can only ask one thing, whether Doremi and Jade have finally succeeded in their 10-year endeavor. And he, torn by thoughts deep inside, before asking if the child he was supposed to look after was still sleeping, pushed that aside. Garnet barely contained her excitement. She felt that her skirt looked strange because Jade had been staring at her intently for several minutes. Probably strange is not the right word for Jade. She truly believed that her skirt perfectly matched Garnet's style. The reception manager smiled as he informed her that her new look was a gift from him. Marin wore it, although she felt insecure in the skirt. General Jade commented on Marin's infatuation with Garnet, and Marin, in response, commented on her love for Garnet. After all, the receptionist so wanted her sister to be happy, even if her face bore a sad expression. Garnet objected to Marin becoming a traveler again. After all, danger had never left her daily life ever since she was a very young girl. Now she had become a full-fledged member of the fellowship. Although Jade understood the secret desires of her affection, she wanted to maintain respect for both sides and decided to support Marin until she could calmly embark on her own adventure. A few hours later, the sisters met Jade and Doremi. They were the ones who were to give her a tour of the capital. After a brief stop at the guild, Marin set off on the road with enthusiasm. They did not waste time, finished the reports, and then at meetings Jade with other children listened to this, undoubtedly impressive heroic story from Marin. Where else will you see a girl without a crest, who looks monsters in the eye and attacks them directly? After the group entered the boutique, where clothes and accessories for little girls were displayed so they could be examined and chosen. Marin showed her a 10,000 monetary limit from Garnet because she wanted the same things as Jade, but in the end, for sizes, they chose style D. So Marin chose from the collection of dresses and robes of a single form. Everything was white, except for one. Yet the girls still couldn't decide, so they left it to a handshake between two allies who liked white clothes. Eventually, they focused on other things: shoes, bags, or jewelry, and everything else. After a few minutes of back and forth, two people bought identical cute handbags. Doremi planned to use them as storage for her collection of stones. Then she gave Marin a small stone as proof of their friendship. And Garnet's little sister loved it, so she pinned a hairpin on Doremi as a gift. The next precious gift Marin and Jade enthusiastically praised was a cute white dragon, calling it very beautiful. And it made Doremi happy and at the same time embarrassed as they headed to the next location. Unfortunately, this was a farewell moment with cuteness. Now she was fully armored without a single drop of humor. Fortunately, they discarded the idea of buying defensive gear because it did not suit Marin's tastes. They decided to take paired shield daggers. And finally, Marin was able to try an incredibly light shield made from the strongest metal in the world, mithril. It seemed expensive, but Jade negotiated with the seller so that Marin would still have money left for lunch. Jade went to the shopkeeper herself and asked the price of the shield, but found out that mithril had become more expensive, so the equipment would cost more than the buyer's budget. Jade offered 5 million for the shield, and its owner gladly agreed without hesitation. On the other hand, Marin was completely stunned and impressed by the unexpected price of her new equipment, only 5,000. She considered it a miracle because Jade said so to support her livelihood. But despite this, Marin happily used her new weapon, and in the end, that was the main thing for Jade. This shield gave her and the young travelers confidence to reach their dream. During the lunch break after shopping, both girls held hands, and at that moment it seemed that Jade behaved like Jade. She wanted to do the same to Garnet that night. The receptionist came home and saw that Marin was waiting for her while she was spending time with Jade. And the young girl immediately told Garnet about what had happened today, and finally showed her the mythical shield she was so proud of. She took it out to tell the receptionist that in the Armory Warehouse store it costs only 5,000, but Garnet knew the real price. She immediately realized that Jade had done something and smiled at Marin, leaving this beautiful lie as thanks for the adventurous Garnet. She invited them to dinner as a treat, but Jade insisted that they pay for her. She told the administrator not to offer any help, because she allowed Marin to join them for general cleaning tomorrow. Of course, Garnet did not mind. The neighbor quietly laughed, assuring Jade that she completely trusts her to take care of Marin again. It was good that the traveler switched to defensive mode precisely for this. Garnet promised to protect Marin at any cost. It seemed that something dangerous was lurking in their house, so protection was necessary. The next day she cleaned the shield, and it was used to destroy several microbes. Perhaps Garnet already went there to work when he just left home, because this equipment would not be here if the elder were present. Despite the fact that they cleaned the Dorami weapons and wiped the entire house, it still hummed purely as the hours passed and eventually the whole house shone. Everything was flawless thanks to their persistent work. Jade offered to buy all the sweets they wanted as a reward for their efforts, but before they could show the lollipops and candies to Dorami, during cleaning they accidentally found a letter. According to Dragon Girl, it got stuck between several books, and it turned out that Jade had completely forgotten about its existence, although it was from King himself. It was truly strange. They personally knew the king of their own kingdom, yet he did not say a word about it. It seemed Jade was an ordinary person, at least for the trouble. Jade found out the letter is an invitation to a party for all adventurers of rank 8 or higher. Every year they held a ball to celebrate the king's birthday. It was obvious that both were very curious if there would be a lot of delicious food, but Jade was not entirely sure, had never attended a ball. Of course, he kept his reasons hidden and wanted to go on the quest and spend time with Granat in the guild. And secretly, Jade also wanted to go with the woman because she liked this place. Then why don't you just take my sister? Marin said, and immediately hit on who Jade was thinking about. Jade stopped, thought it over, and believed that it would happen. Okay, because in his eyes they got along quite well like friends. Until Jade gave up on this idea, his relationship with Garnet was purely business. But now there was more in it, and her receptionist showed him her sweet, sincere smile. Often Jade found the determination within herself to get up and make her wishes a reality. It was the perfect moment with those romantic words. Just one more mission happened. Jade challenged himself to invite his beloved woman to a grand ball in the kingdom. But the chance of refusal was no less, and Dome couldn't resist and tripped him. He told the guard that he would go with him if Garnet refused the invitation. That's why Jade needed him for prayer practice, and right now everything came just in time. When Dorami and Marin were already on the edge of the bath, let Jade drink it. The secret training of Arc in front of the registrar's house was not a surprise. This man was overwhelmed by pressure and nerves, so he calmed himself with the thought that everything would be fine if he acted wisely. He asked Garnet to be his partner in ball, pretending to be Madonna. Jade tried many different ways, starting with talking about the weather and moving on to ordinary, boring phrases, sticking to the topic of the king's joyful birthday. It is not surprising that everyone reacted extremely badly, and it seemed as if the difficulties were shifting to the level of the Demon King, until Jade realized what exactly needed to be done. The only thing he wanted was to dance with his beloved woman and pour out all his feelings. In the next sentence, Jade shouted words right on target, and they had a positive effect that would definitely make Granite talk about her. Maybe this time she was behind the stunned hero, and for the traveler, it was pure horror. But despite her charming appearance, which the receptionist loved, Garnet came to check on her sister while she was resting. Jade told her that the children bathed themselves and had just finished cleaning up. Jade was afraid that Garnet would think badly of her because now she seemed somewhat strange. So she confirmed her fears. She asked the receptionist for her opinion, using Garnet's words. In her opinion, she is a very good person, and this is important support for Jade's emotional well-being. Moreover, Garnet is confident that she is a hardworking and sociable person. The children are glad that she does not look strange in the eyes of that woman. But in the end, it is still too early to celebrate. Garnet heard an invitation to a party, a strange twist of fate. His secret training suddenly became something real. Jade quickly calculated whether she would agree, fearing that it would ultimately ruin her dreams. But to her surprise, the maid accepted it. Not believing what was happening, the adventurer bombarded Garnet with repeated questions to confirm she really did not mind accompanying her to the king's reception. Jade exclaimed excitedly, almost confessing that she liked Garnet, but as always she waved it off, and in response, Garnet laughed. Finally, they waved goodbye to each other, but unfortunately, Jade did not manage to fully see Garnet's joyful smile. She had already returned home. Garnet was still happy while practicing dancing with her invisible partner, and said to both girls just as they came out of the bathroom. Garnet agreed to go with her to the ball, so Jade is burning with desire to practice until she sweats so as not to accidentally step on the feet of her idol. But first, this boy needed to decide what to wear. The first attempt was swept away too shiny and flashy, so for Garnet with her bright clothes, it turned into a real fashion failure. So he changed into dark clothes with a cloak, but the judges met him with low scores. The third attempt looked good and was criticized less, although Jade thought so too, and in the end he was satisfied with it, and thanked them both for their opinions. There were 5 days left until the party, and Jade spent them studying and rehearsing to impress Garnet with a dance. But the preparation lacked Garnet's perspective. There wasn't even a single panel, although the party came during the day. Before Marin joined Jade and White Dragon inside her, it happened because she accompanied the girl on her first quest as an adventurer just like them. When tomorrow comes, Marin wants to return home, because her initial plan was just to complete her first task here in the capital even if it's sad. Jade prioritizes her progress while on the other side of evil prepares to host a celebration, to throw a party between him and Marin to mark her achievement as a traveler. They say they are heading to the guild registration office. You are nervous, but Marin handles everything herself even when she is uneasy. She obediently performs the registration steps step by step. After that, she fills out the documents given to her by Mar and hands over a magical crystal to determine what type of emblem she will receive. Finally, a floral symbol appears and the novice traveler can return to her friends to deliver the good news. When she finally manages to obtain the same crest as Lucky Jade. He is on the side of this girl, so he does not waste time, launches her adventure and rushes to the mountain, where she meets her archenemy, the slippery monster. She quickly slips out of Slime's grasp and just a few seconds into the run. Marin uses that move as mockery to attract Slime's attention and compares him to a chicken. It is an unforgivable insult that forces the one she humiliates to fight back and attack Marin relentlessly. Having strength, she still pulls up and improves what she gives herself. Marin soon finds a clever way to win, not cutting but piercing the sword towards the enemy. The slime turns into a small monotonous squeak and finally lets out a cry of success as Marin completes her debut quest as a flower. But now for the traveler, only one thing remains: to meet the friendly receptionist to ask him about the meeting every day and eventually become the greatest traveler. Well, this time it is Jade's turn to prepare for the party, and it seems she has achieved the perfect look, scoring 100. According to Dorami and Marin, Jade cannot help but be nervous. Just a few more hours until she fulfills one of her dreams, to dance with Granat in the castle. Yet Jade hopes the receptionist will come a little later because he is still on his work shift. A sharp knock suddenly startles them all. But this does not stop Jade. She opens the door and she is engulfed by a loving gaze, the love of her life, the star, stunned by her. Fixated on her attire and overall appearance, he cannot take his eyes off the beautiful woman standing right before him. With his angelic voice, Starstruck asks Jade if he has been waiting too long for her appearance. While they gaze into each other's eyes, Jade enjoys this fleeting moment, and meanwhile the enchanting night approaches and he dances with the woman he loves. Soon Jade does not take his eyes off Garnet and remains speechless, unable to express admiration for the receptionist's beauty. At first, it even exceeded the expectations of Dorami and Marin. Yet Jade still had not recovered. He was still under the spell of that beautiful woman, whom he even likened to the bride who would marry him. But her husband Garnet anxiously asked Jade's opinion about her appearance. However, the man had to wait a few more seconds to answer. He was so stunned the first time when Garnet called him by name. Jade never missed an opportunity to tell Garnet that she looked simply incredible in her dress, which again settled well on Jade's face. Yet they decided to go out right now and visit the fountain in the square as Garnet had requested. It was still too early for the big party to start, so they went. When the children's party began, they celebrated Marin's success in her first quest as an adventurer and recalled the successful taming of the slime, the event that ended before the day darkened and trouble came to light. They once again showed full support by congratulating her, even though they would be separated tomorrow. In the drunken version, Dora and Marin drank a cup of milk to fullness. Imagining the candy lollipop she ate as a blessed gift, Marin realized she wanted to buy something for Garnet so that she could use her own money. Only the compensation from Manabadu was missing for her. Most people had already used it to buy Dorami candies. She could not bear how her friend was in such a sad state. The dragon also advised her to take a task from the union now to earn money needed for some time. Meanwhile, Jade and Garnet were heading to the square. When the nervous hero learned that the receptionist left work early so as not to make Jade wait for the other, something was wrong here. It turned out Garnet was also impatiently waiting for the ball at the castle, but not because she wanted to dance. And all because of Jade's excitement. She felt the same way. Even though Jade's dancing skills were weak, she blushed as soon as she heard this and assured Garnet that she would make sure she had a good time, so she would not regret coming to the party with her at all. Finally, they reached the square and saw that special empty spot. But Jade had already grabbed it, enjoying the view. Garnet smiled at the fountain in the background. Even before they sat on the bench, just as Jade had hoped. Jade loved looking at Garnet's beauty more than anything, so he did not take his eyes off her face instead of that famous mountain ridge. It came to the point that he kept vigilant with all his might so as not to be suspected of eccentricity for not noticing Jade's presence. Suddenly Garnet's thoughts themselves thanked him. He helped Marin in her mission and took her under surveillance at that time. There was no more reason to worry. Jade noticed Garnet's unease when her sister went wandering through the forest. So she finally bombarded with a million questions, as if trying to understand whether the reception denies Marina's dreams as a response to Garnet's appearance. Her face twisted with sadness, and she admitted that she was afraid Marin would eventually repeat the fate of their father, a traveler who rarely returned home and even more rarely lived long. They last saw him 12 years ago before Marin was born. That is, there is a high probability that he is no longer in this world, and you will never meet him again. Garnet became a member of the guild staff to gather information about her father's whereabouts, but it all ended in failure. There was no news or rumors about him. Now, at Jade's request, Garnet revealed that her father's name is Onyx. This word not only evoked memories in fans of Pocket Monsters but also stuck to Jadish asked if Onyx has a scar on his right cheek. Moreover, it turns out that after he defended Granite's mother in the past, he got injured and Jade was able to confirm that it was the same person she met in her hometown 12 years ago. At that time, Onyx had a 7-petaled floral symbolic background on his hand, and he was the first traveler Jade had met since childhood. That is why Jade told Granite that it was Onyx's story about his adventures that was the main reason she wanted to become an adventurer like him. 12 years ago, Onyx visited Jade Village to tell the young man his story and to find out if he would continue his adventures. Unfortunately, many adventures had to be postponed that day. Jade was only 10 years old then. But to join the guild, he needed 2 more years. But that did not stop him from dreaming about traveling the world and becoming a hero. Let's move to the present day. Garnet notices a ray of hope after hearing Jade's background. Of course, Jade thanks Onyx for being the reason he became a great traveler and for letting him meet the daughter, the one he fell in love with. Jade vows to himself he will find Onyx at any cost and tells Garnet that he will gather information even if he has to go to another country. Jade also wants to meet Onyx Agonand. This is also a way to thank Garnet for accepting his invitation to the party. The secretary quietly giggles and thanks Jade for letting her know. Tonight she will dance the bistaz, a sign of gratitude for her offer. They start to leave because the time is almost up and the party is about to start. Unfortunately, a problem arises. Something sticky sticks to Jade's dress, leaving stains, and Jade begins to blame himself for this accident. Although at first Garnet did not think it was their fault, now they cannot disrespect the king and wear dirty clothes. Jade personally dug a grave for them, promising to lend them an outfit from his place. Later, everything turned out to be a complete disaster, so with very little time left, they rushed home as fast as they could. Just to clarify, Marin and White Dragon were not there either. Jade rushed and in fierce haste searched the entire house, despite that uncomfortable feeling that did not leave them, and found out that there was no trace of either of them. Suddenly, Jade did not notice that the mithril shield was missing, and decided that Azab and Marin went to the guild to take a quest. Unaware of how deadly dangerous that order was, Jade without wasting minutes pushed Garnet to go with them to the guild, although the royal procession was about to start. Jane and Garnet desperately shouted their names on the way to the guild, but heard no response. Fortunately, one of the guild workers pointed them in the right direction. So Jade asked them about the disaster in Marin, and it turned out that both were enthusiastically conquering slimes. The quest, the last thing Jade and Garnet did, is what they want to hear about right now, regardless of why the girls were exposed to danger. Jade planned to turn them back and told Garnet to go home and wait. And what about the party? Of course, he is waiting to go there and dance with the woman he loves, but there are more important matters that need to be prioritized. Garnet understands that maybe it would be rude to just leave the one she invited to the ball. Jade stated that Liko and Marin are more valuable than any party, especially if it's the king's birthday. Unfortunately, the king is not here. Still, Jade is playing ball again this year. And Garnet is happy and confident that she will not do this. She says with relief Jay will take care of her sister and Dora Me, so she leaves this problem in his hands. Jay is very willing to take care of it in the dark forest. Marin begins to worry whether they can overcome the slime, and in the darkness somewhere danger lurks. And yet the disaster does not scare her at all, or she simply does not show fear. Marin wants to engrave good memories with friends in their last adventure. Besides, the white dragon wants to fulfill Marin's request to give her sister a reality gift, so she tries to focus on the laser and be at her peak, carefully watching everything around. Finally, Dorami feels the presence of her enemy, even if it is an attack that will hit her, and possibly Marin too. Moreover, there's not just one slug. And this turned into a terrible experience that makes Dorami reach out to her friend's hand to make a so-called tactical retreat. Their eyes are closed, but both run to where, in their opinion, the entrance should be, until they stop seeing the ice. Finally, the sky clears, and they manage to avoid that famous slippery danger. So, they take a pause before Dorami begins to look for a way back to her hometown. The little dragon is worried about her situation, but it seems these anxieties disappear when Marin expresses gratitude and urges Dorami to return home to finish what she really wants. Which continues the adventure alone with her friend, the same dream as before. Joyful again, the little dragon shows a bright smile to convey what she feels. It is a hard time to calm their turbulent souls and quench the hunger inside so they can return to the capital. Someone still wants to join their party, and it is none other than a spiny creature that peacefully seeks to eat a few pieces of candy from both sides. Well, this guy looks quite friendly for someone with such scary fangs, or not. But Dorami and Marin are really panicking now. They are screaming at full volume because they just encountered a wild creature that can only be defeated by someone with at least luck rank 3. Marin knows these monsters are blind and deaf, though their sense of smell is very sensitive. They throw pieces of meat to distract the bear, so they can run again, saving their own lives. Anxiety overwhelms Dorami, and within it fear, because it will be impossible to fight the monster and survive after meeting it again. Finally, they find an empty cave and enter it to check if this place can be their hideout, despite the strange smell that makes them nauseous. Not even a minute passes before Marin sees the lifeless bones of another monster that caused the disaster. They decide that this is a bear's den, so there is still a risk that they will be made into snacks for night monsters. Dorami and Marin quickly run to the cave entrance, but find out everything has already happened there. Too late, when the winged bear blocked the only path they could escape by. The situation pushed Marin to come closer. She knelt and blamed herself for wanting to join them on this mission at such a dangerous time. The white dragon, of course, thought it was Marin's fault while she was pondering whether it would be better to return to her original form, since her sister, Garnet, might hate the dragon girl. Protecting Marin and enduring hatred was more important than doing nothing and allowing her dear friend to enter the Reaper's mind, although this confused Marin. The girl was assured that now and in the future everything would be fine. So there was no longer any reason to worry. She is here to protect her, no matter what happens. And because of this, everything became even more confusing for Marin. Dorami took off her clothes to keep Marin away from danger and left, leaving all her valuables behind before taking on the burden of the price for the winged bear's scale. It appeared on her skin in the form of the letter D. Her transformation started with a loud declaration: she is a mighty dragon. At that moment, Marin could only freeze and watch her friend, amazed as the swirling glow turned into a mystical creature, a white-winged monster. She roars to start a counterattack and protect her dear friend. Enraged, Dorami fiercely looked at the blind bear and with incredible speed rushed straight at him. The monster was late because it smelled the deadly attack coming from the dragon's claws. She slammed the bear against a tree and instantly knocked him down. By this, he made Dorami the victor and also saved the remaining Granite children. Now only one thing remained: to escort Marin to the capital. But knowing the truth about Dorami's identity, he feared she would not do it, or might even ruin their friendship right there. And then Dorami regretted offering Marin to take on the mission. They could have enjoyed time together and not end the evening if not for the deep thoughts of the white dragon. Tears appeared in her sad human eyes. It hurt her how unbearably tragic this farewell sounded. When sorrow overwhelmed Dorami, Jade's voice echoed. Jade is finally arriving to take them back to the capital. Just seconds ago, she heard the roar of battle nearby and rushed there, but it turned out the trouble was already over, the fight had ceased, and they were safe. Although the white dragon was forced, reluctantly, to turn back into human form for this to happen. Jade saw Marin and asked if she was okay. Instead of answering, the girl fell to her knees and cried, apologizing for taking on the quest at night. But Jade was not truly angry, he was simply glad they were both safe. He allowed them to go home first until another monster appeared. Marin knew the true form of Dorami, and this greatly frightened the white dragon. It seems nothing is needed, but as soon as Marin approaches her dear friend with a smile, it immediately becomes clear. The anxieties do not let go in any way. Appreciating her efforts and bravery, she had previously saved her from the monster. She thought this would definitely be their end, especially since Marin was in Dorami's cloak, so that, when she returned to being human, she wouldn't catch a cold. Quietly shaking her head, Marin thought that Dorami was too shy to show her face. The magical glow appeared again, and the white dragon transformed into a young girl, shrouded in misty haze. This was her current form. "Are you worried, Dorami?" Marin asked. "Aren't you afraid of becoming a terrible dragon who will eventually be called a monster?" In the end, it turned out to be only rainbows and butterflies when DY learned that Marin would treat her as a friend. It didn't matter whether the winged one was a monster or an ordinary child. She allowed her sister Garnet to return the hairpin she had given to the dormitory. A few days ago, the dragon girl was deeply moved and put on this accessory again while they both smiled at each other, celebrating friendship. When it was time to go home, they realized that this was not Garnet but Jade, and she was not enjoying the ball. And finally they found out she was looking for them. As soon as she learned about their disappearance, Dorami apologized, especially because she fully understood her guardian's excitement about dancing with the woman he loved, and Marin felt the same, even while blaming herself. Of course, Jade was not angry at either of them. For her, their safety was more important than anything. Except seeing Dorami and Marin blaming themselves and their weaknesses forced her to give them reassuring words first. Jade told Marin that she was not weak at all, and she was very brilliant in understanding the dangerous situation and escaping from the dormi. Her courage and bravery protected Marin, which Jade acknowledged, and it seemed like those words convinced both of these girls. So Jade urged them to go home and report their safety to the worried reception manager, who could not wait for them at her home as Jade had said. Garnet waited inside until she heard a scream from the door and saw both of them entering the house. She immediately focused on her sister and was very happy to see her again after so many years. Nervously, he hurried to Marin to hug them and stop the trouble, but met with a calm smile and a few relieved tears. Instead of apologies in response, they argued about who was to blame, because essentially both insisted that it was my fault or something like that. The first thing Garnet felt was the same as Jakai, so he saw no need for further reprimands. It seemed Marin and Dumi had already learned their lesson. So Garnet appreciated Jade's endless help and told her, let him say if there is anything he can do to repay. Jade invited Garnet to the great celebration next year so they would still have time to enjoy it, even though the current one had just ended. As always, Jade hid her true intentions, pretending as if she liked to dance. Lead her to suggest to them to dance right now themselves, instead of waiting another 12 months for the next opportunity. They moved to an empty room where they could dance to their heart's content. Music was playing on the gramophone. Jade and Garnet locked eyes, and Jade finally made an incredible move, firmly took the woman's hand. For the first time, the gentleness and delicacy of her fingers enchanted the heavens of Jade, and she was afraid that during the dance, pulling Garnet closer, he might accidentally hurt her. Garnet, feeling ashamed of his blunder, cautiously approaches his partner. They exchange shy smiles, their faces just a few centimeters apart. Jade catches the trail of pomegranate scents and feels the soft touch of her partner's chest, and an admiring breath escapes her. Romantic music playing somewhere in the background sets the perfect mood, and they finally begin to dance. Both are completely enchanted, not averting their gaze from each other, savoring the moment when their unrequited love turns into a beautiful reality. Anxiously, he hurried to Marin to embrace them and was immediately met with a smile and a few tears of relief, glad they had returned. Because in response to their apologies, they started arguing about who was to blame, although essentially both insisted it was my fault or something very similar. The first thing Garnet felt was the same as Jakai, and he did not consider further reprimands necessary. It seemed Marin and Juomi had already learned their lesson. So Garnet appreciated Jade's endless help and told her to let him know if he could repay her for this favor in any way. Jade invited Garnet to a huge party next year so they could continue to feel it, even though the current one had just ended. As always, Jade pretended to enjoy dancing to hide her true motives. Lead the receptionist so that she suggests dancing right now, not waiting another 12 months for the next chance. They were moved to an empty room. Dance as much as you want. Music was playing on the gramophone. Jade and Garnet looked into each other's eyes, and Jade finally made the impossible move, grabbing the woman by the hand. For the first time, the gentleness and delicacy of her fingers enchanted Jade's heavens, making him nervous. What if, pulling Garnet closer during the dance, he accidentally hurt her? Garnet, feeling ashamed of her own trouble, cautiously approaches her partner. They exchange shy smiles, faces just centimeters apart. Jane catches a faint scent of pomegranate and feels the gentle touch of her partner's chest, and from this escapes an admiring breath. The romantic music coming from behind creates the perfect mood as they finally start to dance. Both are completely disarmed. They look into each other's eyes and savor the moment when their hopeless love finally turns into a beautiful reality. Eventually, Garnet finally stopped apologizing for constantly stepping on Jade's feet. Only Jade was so immersed in the present moment that he didn't even notice. Garnet's fading concern did not stop Jade's happy evening. They had fun all night. Here, someone's stomach loudly rumbled over the music from the gramophone, and this hinted to Jade, time to end the dance. He wished it would last longer. That blush on Garnet's face made him think that Garnet himself was growling, so he had to immediately grab something to eat. In fact, the hungry sound came from Marin. Jade asked the feverish waitress receptionist if she was okay, but learned that Garnet was holding himself back for the sake of their dance. Everything was fine, especially considering that her flushed face was explained by fear and nervousness. Garnet danced with a man for the first time, and now Jade was blushing hard too. She assured Garnet that her dance was so wonderful that it instantly attracted everyone's attention if they regularly went to dance parties. Jade was truly happy just because she could dance with Garnet, and even said those words so that the receptionist could hear them. Because of this, she also shone with happiness. Jade is a friend. It's late already, but she still realizes what she just said. It turned out that when the dragon above her told Marin about the gift of her guardian, the star flower for Garnet, and about his efforts in fishing, because it is a favorite dish at the reception, her face changed. Then Dorami revealed the top secret of the Villa Jade boat, the very one that directed Marin there. You plan to help them become a real couple. The sister-in-law agreed, but it took her a long time to finally understand. Jade really loved Garnet to the point that she wanted a romantic relationship with him. Their relationship was not like a puppy adoring its owner, and Marin could see how she was waiting for it to happen, because after that Dorami dropped a real bomb. Jade noticed that Garnet was already here and understood her feelings, but could not make herself not stutter and not say at least one word to deny or support the words of dragon girls. Therefore, Garnet dared to ask the traveler if it was really true that he liked the expression on the receptionist's face without any disappointment or disgust. Meanwhile, Jade was terribly frightened and embarrassed, and because of him it even became cold. Although Jade did not reveal any details in response to Garnet's question, the receptionist continued the interrogation, now asking if he wanted this. It seemed that Jade's romance with someone should neither be denied nor convincingly said that she did not want to go on a date with Garnet, because she was the woman he had wanted to be with for a long time. Jade could only object when Garnet asked if he was wrong, but in the end he could not properly convey her words, although she got confused, nervously babbling in a confused and chaotic dialogue. Jade could only object when Garnet asked if he was wrong, but in the end he could not properly convey her words, although she got confused, nervously babbling in a confused and chaotic dialogue. This made Jade remember their first meeting 10 years ago and the determination she gave herself then to someday tell Garnet about her feelings. Thinking it over, Jade refused to be afraid and began to steel herself, because it was now or never. In her eyes was determination as he looked at the woman he loved. After 10 long years that felt like an eternity, she finally confessed her love and at the same time a passionate desire for them both to start dating. She surprised Garnet with her unexpected gesture, her response a smile and the long-awaited okay, allowing her to accept Jade's proposal. Since their love for each other turned out to be mutually beneficial, just as Garnet wanted. In the end, their friendship grew into a romantic relationship, the kind Jade had craved from the very first few milliseconds of their relationship. Jade has a question mark hidden in his head. He cannot believe this is happening, and the man wants to know the reason. Garnet emphasizes, she has been watching Jade for 10 years, so she was able to study his adventurous character. And the fact that she is always cheerful. That's why they both became lovers, and this will definitely make the receptionist happy. And the same applies to Jade, if not happier than that woman. That's why this is a checkmate for those who don't believe, especially for those who oppose the ship. Jade is finally completing his final romantic adventure, and the great vessel is setting sail. Jade is 101 happy. His dream has finally come true. So he swears on his life and promises Garnet that he will definitely make her happy because of this. They accept greetings from Trouble. And Marin leads Jade again, and she finally understands. The dream he held onto all his life has come true, even surpassing all his expectations. The next day, they accompany Marin to the station to say goodbye. The rookie adventurer has finally arrived, and surprisingly, Marin is determined to train with all her might to become a rank 10 adventurer. He has full support from Roy and Jade, as well as Garnet, who finally believes in her younger sister. Although at first I objected to this, unfortunately, the train was about to depart, so the Marines began to withdraw. Leave them until the moment when Dorami suddenly stopped her and handed over a stone, the most beautiful one she had found during their travels. The gem was so beautiful that it was a blue Shan. Marin wondered if she could have something like that, something valuable. This made Dorami declare the condition. Marin must obtain even more beautiful stones if she finds them on her journey. After the deal was made, Marin, who was sealed, boarded the train. And he joyfully said goodbye to the dragon girl, who waved from her back, smiling. Until she sat down and burst into tears because Dorami looked sad and had been holding back since everything started. It no longer bothered Marin. The farewell was poignant, but Garnet assured him they would meet again. And the next day, when there was a holiday, she invited them to her parents' house. Of course, her boyfriend was also invited. And he was quite happy until the moment when Jade was already figuring out what gift he would give to his mother-in-law, so Dormi said. And Jade was thrilled to continue the adventures and travel the world as soon as possible. All because of Jade's gift for Garnet's mother, and at the same time gathering information about her father. But Garnet still seemed sad. Jade was confused by this. She thought the plan to go somewhere would cheer her up, but reality was far from that. Although Garnet feels happy, Jade is ready to do anything for her. She does not want them to be separated. Jade blushed when the receptionist pulled out the things and showed her Garnet. It was exactly him she decided to keep with her and return to the guild. If he wasn't nearby, she would feel lonely. Of course, Jade could still meet Garnet without approaching the window with the cash register, especially since they were already a couple. Jade wanted to continue being with his current girlfriend in their usual place because he liked watching Garnet in her uniform. Since Jade fell in love with her, she looked like an angel in that outfit. These words erased all of Garnet's worries, so she invited both of them to dinner. It seemed her stomach could no longer wait. It was ready to eat meat immediately. That's why the dragon girl and her guard decided to eat outside, enjoying breakfast together with the receptionist, who was clearly happy to join. 3 days later, the dragon girl distanced herself again, and Jade thoughtfully watched how many times this had already happened today. She was constantly, every second, occupied with thoughts about Garnet. Yet she was happy for Jade and prayed that she would find the greatest happiness with the woman she loved forever. Jade expressed gratitude for the confession. He really had few ideas left to make Garnet happy, but it turned out Dorami had a special plan for this. He suggested Jade go and have fun with his girlfriend on a regular date, meaning this idea. The opportunity to get closer to Garnet 100 unexpected. And again, where would she have to go? As I have already said earlier, the chances of arranging a good rest for Garnet are undoubtedly high, but only on the condition that Jade manages to find a good place for his girlfriend. So they advise going shopping with Garnet. This is because it has already been proven and verified by everyone except the dragon girl and the Marins themselves. Moreover, Jade can get the appropriate item for his partner. And finally, use this experience as a guideline for the real date immediately after. After that, Jade and Garnet go to the department store to look for dishes, because Garnet seems to plan to buy new plates. Of course, Jade perceives this as an opportunity to prove how useful he is as a boyfriend. So Jade asked what kind of plates her beloved was looking for. They found out that Garnet wants something with a pattern to make the table look livelier. During the joint dinner, Jade was impressed. Her girlfriend thought about such things. And she seemed incredibly cute to him. Because of this, Jade was able to help choose the plates that matched their preferences without any hesitation. They both rummaged through different types of plates, savoring every moment of their shopping walk. Eventually, Jade noticed a set of plates with hearts and asked Garnet's opinion. Only to hear the administrator call them cute, Jade thought the same. So she bought it as a gift for her girlfriend despite the strange cries praising Garnet's fantastic appearance. The embarrassed administrator stopped Jade in front of her. And the praise grew louder until the store staff, overhearing their intimate conversation, heard everything. Fortunately, Jade woke up from her consciousness. They finished shopping and decided to have dinner at Garnet's house. On the way home, Garnet happily talked about their incredible first date, and it ended with a sweet smile directed at her surprised daughter-in-law. It was a real meeting, not just training, despite their initial doubts. No one could deny that it was a great success for Jade and Garnet, and it turned out to be their dream lived in reality. After that, dinner was served, and indeed everything ended with satisfied faces, as they had said. Garnet reminded them that they could come to eat every day if they wanted to hear how Jade postponed her proposal. And just as she suddenly told the woman about her plans to start looking for her father tomorrow. As we already know, Garnet's father is the one Jade respects the most, and that is more than enough for Jade to promise Garnet she will definitely bring back her father. But no matter how much Garnet trusts her beloved, she still cannot help but worry about Jade's safety. But the journey will definitely be dangerous. Yet her thoughts are capable of shaking the very title of the selfless hero of the kingdom, so she convinced Garnet they will return home and see her again without any delays. Then she tells them about her plan to go to a neighboring country when misfortune accidentally spills juice on her glass. And she immediately apologizes for it. But the most important thing is that Garnet is worried about the stained clothes and wants Dorami to change as soon as possible. Eventually, she finds the final plan after the dragon girl transforms into a princess thanks to the dress Garnet lent her. It turns out that Jade's friend, who had the dragon girl when she was as old as Dorami and Garnet, is okay with the dragon girl staying herself and not wearing those things. That's because she is her mother, she bought them for her. That's why Garnet doesn't want to look like a country bumpkin when they go to the capital, even though she doesn't like it. Jade is sure that at that moment the clothes fit Garnet perfectly. And now the dragon girl wants an honest assessment of her appearance like a real princess. Of course, it's a perfect 10 out of 10. Dorami thanks Garnet in advance. They return home. She lies down on the bed in that outfit and falls asleep peacefully like a white dragon. But everything breaks off when she suddenly screams in horror. A nightmare covers her. In the dream, someone is setting up a disaster, and Jade doesn't know who it is until he is reminded of it. This frightened girl is a monster named White Dragon. After that, their kingdom is the only country that protects these creatures. For Dorami, going to a foreign state should be a nightmare to the point that she probably spilled her drink earlier. No wonder people from other countries would shun her or worse, like hunters after learning about her anxiety. Jade gave her the choice to stay here and take care of the house without saying a word about the possibility of being left behind. Garnet didn't care whether the girl wanted that. Dorami refused to accompany Jade on his journey, despite the fact that she felt fear and anxiety due to the possibility of accidents. They pushed all that aside and put their desire to help Garnet and Marin, two dearest friends, first. They needed to meet their father again and make him very happy. He agreed with the slap to himself, and the disaster was overcome so he could set off with Jade on a journey to the neighboring country if he was still ready to take her with him. So they decided that they would leave as soon as dawn came to find an amazing adventure. They had enough adventure to leave the wife and daughter alone. The next day, Jade and Dorami said goodbye to Garnet. Unfortunately, she could not accompany them to the station because of work. For Jade, this was the most important thing besides the fact that she was the one who was going to accompany her in the guild when Jade and Dorami set off on a journey to find Onyx and return him to the girl she left behind. Yes, seriously. The second day of the long adventure began and trouble had already happened. They were exhausted both morally and physically, but she refused to rest in the dark forest, even though the next town was still 3 hours away. During the journey to Jade Kingdom, Jade received a task from the guild to tame a supposedly ghostly spirit, but it seemed that Trouble had not yet realized this. And she escaped into a world of mental patterns, occupied with thoughts about dinner. Finally, he found out that he would have to fight a ghost, and this poor little dragon was not happy at all. Where everything happened just like that. In response, Jade convinced Arami that ghosts are not exactly ghosts because they are rather shapeless beings that transform into what their enemies fear the most. However, Garnet should be here already, considering that the ghost will turn into an ordinary spider, and they could defeat it with 1 or 2 solid blows. Yet he still feared the worst scenario, where the ghost would turn into many powerful beast Jades. And it turned out that the frightening monster Jade Basilisk was already in the past. Now she could tame them without any effort. This incredibly helped during the disaster. So they kept stumbling until someone snored loudly enough to echo through the forest, taking away the young dragoness's brief silence. So Jade decided to check what was going on, since the likelihood that the source of the frightening sound all this time was a ghost was high. Quietly hiding in the bushes, Jade and Dorami saw a huge black dragon. He was sleeping deeply, and this was not the shapeless beast Jade had spoken about. Now their enemies were not only powerful and fierce breed monsters from outside, because Jade was convinced this black dragon was its ghost. It seems this type of air monster does not live in their territory, but they are proud enough to live in the mountains, and those should not be underestimated. With these thoughts, Jade approached the black dragon to check its reaction and make sure that the creature she knew and that even the ghost would know about would be cautious and not attack immediately. He silently stared at the monster and showed no hostile intent, just waited to see what the black dragon would do next. Jade's suspicion was confirmed. An enchanted glow flared up as if announcing the start of the amazing transformation of the ghost. Jade's eyes widened sharply when he saw the apparition of the person he feared the most, and the one who could with a single shot cut short the little life dear to Grandma Jade's heart. Despite the initial reaction, Jade was not afraid at all, only stunned by what she saw. Grandma Beloved appeared in the event, and the dragon girl commented that it all looked like complete nonsense, especially considering that when she saw the old woman start a series of strikes, there were no scary hints. However serious her blows were, Jade could not defeat the ghost if it was in this form, because as you know, it breaks the rules. Jade asked Dorami to come, but she refused even against Grandma Jade. Although what she did was actually thoughtful, to approach the ghost and force it to transform into something else, not this innocent old lady that the little girl sees with her own eyes. In a matter of seconds, he was transformed into a terrible winged bear, and it happened just now. Only then did Dorami realize her day had really gone crazy. She ran away at full speed, screaming in fear because of an unwanted encounter with that monster from memory. This allowed Jade to strike hard right into the guts of the winged bear. He was paralyzed, and the fight ended with the debut of the one and only success. Jade gathered the moonstone and told Dorami that a ghost was sitting inside it. The winged bear's hide was felled, as was the end of their conquest. Now they could finally sleep on a soft, fluffy bed without any disasters, thanks to the trump card held by the almighty Wen, on their way to the city of the Dragon Girl. Jade asked if she had fought with her grandmother to become the scariest for everyone, but the truth was different. She actually supported the young traveler in his dream. Fear appeared in Jade only because of certain incidents that affected her only in the way it does for a curious boy. She sneaked out of the house to feel the thrill of adventure at night. And she got lost for 3 days and eventually returned to receive the harshest scolding from her grandmother as a warm greeting. And all this was truly unexpected. Jade had a funny past experience. And Dorami still wanted to find out who was scarier, her grandmother or Jade's waiting. In fact, Jade had a grandmother who had nothing to do with her lineage, and she did not know who her parents were or if they were still alive. Before moving to an abandoned mine in the village, she lived there secretly with the Dragon Girl until she finally ran away even before the owner found out about her. It turned out that Dorami entered without warning because of the growling of her stomach, and the grandmother who lived in that house had no idea that a white dragon was unloading there that day. Dorami entered through the door after a few knocks and received an answer that was simply unimaginable. The Dragon Girl was not destined to see the miracle waiting on the table. So you can't say otherwise. Dorami ate it to the last piece. Even though she later cried, realizing what she had done to quell her hunger. Dorami hid in the attic while listening to the furious shouts of the master downstairs, and this lasted a whole year. Leaving Dorami with no choice, he forces her to silently finish the leftovers. When the woman grows old, she falls asleep. But once her grandmother climbs to the attic and shows that she knows someone is hiding there. Because of this, the white dragon desperately flees through the broken window. And now Dorami's feelings are filled with remorse, and he wants to fix everything himself. He thanked the old woman and apologized for what he had done. Therefore, when Jade found out about this, the house could be kept somewhere in the monarchy. She pushed Dorami there and assured the girl that she was fine because that is exactly where they are heading. They continue their journey to overcome the trouble in time. And they swear to find their grandmother's lover. She promised the fallen star that no one else would escape, and that this time she would correct her last regrets. After that, they finally reached the commercial zone of the monarchy, where Dorami tried to find her grandmother's house, only to fail on the first attempt because they were still entering a busy urban area. The Dragon Girl shines with joy. She wants to explore this place and maybe replace her legendary sword, which broke right in the middle of their journey. They said goodbye to the old wooden stick. This memory will not be forgotten. Unfortunately, shopping will have to be postponed. Their priority task is to gather intelligence about Onyx's location as quickly as possible. Jade and Dorami headed to the city's guild hall and found out that their policy does not allow receptionists to share personal information with outsiders, information to third parties. Of course, Jade can reveal that this is Onyx's future son-in-law, the future husband of her daughter, but at this stage, this most likely will not help save them. The face of the white baby dragon when he gave the girl his precious stone to be asked for it. Unfortunately, the guild staff did not give up. How funny he thought Doram looked. However, the anthropomorphized dragon did not back down. He placed another stone on the table and finally pierced the receptionist's heart. Moreover, it seemed to have worked by the staff's decision. They decided to confirm this matter with the guildmaster himself because they thought that personally asking him as a thank you would do no harm. Dorami happily gave her the precious item as a gift, but the receptionist ran away saying that she might be under too much pressure. But their efforts finally bore fruit. The guildmaster agreed to meet with them, especially Jade, since he finally saw her again, as they knew each other. So the disaster was asked to confirm this, and because of this, he ended up there. Knowing that Jade once, at the request of this country, defeated a black-skinned dragon, but that story is for another time. When the conversation moved to the main topic, Jade and Dorami asked the guildmaster for help to find a man named Onyx, who disappeared without a trace 12 years ago, as expected, and thereby exposed that someone disclosed information to others contrary to their rule. But the head of the Federation was ready to make an exception for Jade. As a way to thank her for her kindness and gratitude to her country, absolute gratitude to both. Although searching for the magazine 12 years ago took the chief article writer at least 3 days. Of course, for Jade this is not a problem. They can come back again the next morning as soon as they finish the next task. They both walked the streets to find a gift for Garnet in the 2 days left. Dorami advised buying her local fruits, especially peaches, exactly what she wanted. This is the place where the dragon girl imagined getting engaged and truly received seeds from the guardian of their home. So this disaster could have kept him at home and brought him one step closer to becoming Garnet's plant friend. So Jade decided on the last day in the city to buy fresh fruits and for now visit another store. They entered a shop where various goods were available and in the end bought this as a keepsake and as a gift. Looking at the shop with delight, Jade noticed a flower pot with water. Dorami thought it would suit Garnet's wish. Thanks to this, Jade imagined the scene of her girl with the gift, a sweet smile on her face, and thanked Jade for it. So it was decided, the flower pot would go to Garnet. Meanwhile, on the other side, a disaster was approaching. The snail was looking for his future business and planting peach trees. The reason behind the idea turned out to be sad, even if the snail really could listen when you have no one to talk to. But in fact, this happened after Dormi found something to replace his legendary wooden staff. Although it was not a sword but a flute. But still, the dragon girl was glowing with joy. She kept looking at Jade, until Jade agreed to buy the instrument. And Jade also took it upon herself to buy gifts for her grandmother, so as not to waste time searching for various accessories such as towels, hats, or cool dragon-shaped keychains. In the end, the trouble was satisfied not only with obtaining the flute, but also with the great loot they bought as a gift for the dragon girl's grandmother. May be a bit excessive, but they would take it anyway. Moreover, Dorami saw a familiar old woman nearby. She was praying by the spring, as if hoping that something would confirm whether she was truly the person they were looking for. When Durham nervously approached closer, he finally hid on Jade's back and held on until the very answer, which was confirmed simply by the girl nodding. While Jade was happy that the trouble could finally apologize to the white dragon, she was trembling with anxiety. She was afraid the old woman would hit her. Dorami did not even intend to apologize himself. From the beginning, it was his fault. But it was sincere repentance. While they were negotiating, the grandmother began to leave just like that, forced to become a guardian, while they followed her to the Dutch store and then to the old woman's home. Finally, the two saw the house, old and simple in appearance, and quickly confirmed this was the grandmother's residence. He approached the front door while seconds stretched into minutes and no trouble knocked. Fearing that he might disturb the owner, who seemed to be drinking tea at the moment, Jade ordered him to return to the inn and have lunch first, and only then try again. And Grandma stopped them on the spot with one intimidating question: "What are you doing here?" Dorami looked stunned with fear when she turned around and saw that she was not the grandma. The family was waiting for the one who looked at them after finding their things. The strange surveillance operation immediately made the dragon girl sweat heavily. and in despair, she blurted out to the old woman that she was pretending to be a princess and had recruited her as a queen, saying it was a perfectly natural act. Grandma's house looked like the perfect castle for their base, so it was no wonder that Dorami once wanted to settle here. Well, she already had, but the old woman was unhappy that the girl was about to touch the walls of her house, and she hissed at her angrily even before it happened. This made Dorami sincerely apologize for her cheeky prank. There was something in that wall that Jade noticed, but of course, she did not show it, and instead reminded the dragon girl why they came here. Finally, Dorami was able to say the words she had kept inside all this time, especially now that Grandma was waiting for her to tell everything. But instead of apologizing for the mess, he declared that he wanted to help Grandma clean the house with whatever help she needed. However, it was clear, the old woman felt offended. So Dorami unleashed his hyper beam to praise Grandma with intimidating gestures, but in the end, it didn't work very well. And Grandma backed away from his antics and agreed to let the girls clean the house. Even when Dorami was ordered to dust the windows, the white dragon's parcel looked too persistent, and the results speak for themselves. So he set about scrubbing the floor with a mop with all his might until all the dust was finally subdued. Grandma came out of the room and advised Jade to let Dorami rest if she wanted to. Jade responded with a surprised look, but after a few minutes, she begged Dragon Girl to take a break, only to find out that Dorami would not agree, at least for now, because it turned out she wanted to see everything through to the end. Although they still hadn't had time to have lunch, the cleaning continued, and the next spot was the attic, where everything could be messier than anywhere else in the house. But no, Dorami did not waste time and rushed to where he had previously hidden from her. Incredibly, the room was almost cleaned, and there was even a mattress with a soft blanket, which hadn't been there before when Dorami was freeloading. This made them believe tonight someone might come here, and the cleaning was finally completed thanks to that person. And Durai felt a hungry rumble in his little stomach, as if responding to their prayers that, because their grandmother ordered them to come down before the food got cold, and from that Durama was both happy and worried at the same time. He truly deserved to savor his own homemade food from the woman he once deceived, but it would still be improper to refuse someone's invitation. So the humiliated dragon sighed and obediently joined Jade, supposedly to act decently, although this very righteous appearance pushed them to eat. A hollow rumble sounded nearby, and it was none other than the white dragon in human form, who grumbled that he was hungry because he missed lunch. Similarly, Durami was focused on cleaning and only noticed the rumbling in his stomach. He did not waste this golden opportunity. He enjoyed the soup that the old woman had prepared for them. His face showed satisfaction, a completely different level of happiness. And it seemed their grandmother was also happy about this, so, urging Dormi and Jade, she ordered them to enjoy the food. When night came, the dragon girl lay in bed, unwilling to rest because she still wanted to help with the household chores, although her grandmother ordered her to sleep. Moreover, Dorami looked sleepy, almost falling from drowsiness while pondering her unsuccessful attempt to apologize. Thoughts spilled out of her head as she embraced sweet dreams, and Jade could only smile, thinking about the efforts of the dragon girl. While the morning cleaning began, Jade noticed bright light from the main street. And he imagined the scene, how he enjoys this incredible view and the pomegranate on the mountain peak. So it turned out that this was their date here. The dreamy moment was broken by the grandmother. His imagination turned into a shrill horror. But Jade decided it was because of something, since Dorami, whom she reported about, had already gone to sleep. But it turned out that the old woman did not want to wake her from sleep, so she unexpectedly borrowed some time from Jade. Meanwhile, Jade was offered tea at the table, and the grandmother poured some for herself without sugar because she did not like sweets, which greatly surprised the traveler Dorami. The grandmother left some candies on the table, and also, it seems, she bought donuts. So when Jade saw them for the first time, he asked if she was expecting a guest tonight, and the answer was extremely strange. It did not mean that the food was for her and Dorami, it was for a visitor who was not there. Then the donuts were directly given to the dragon girl, and there was a scene where the grandmother scolded her for touching the walls, to prevent her from harming herself and getting injured. In other words, the old woman only worried about the young girl and was not truly angry at her, unlike what suddenly happened outside. Grandmother asked Jade if they lived somewhere nearby, and the fact that both of them were from the kingdom of Sundil made her smile, not grimace. It turned out that grandmother wanted to take advantage of this moment to thank Jade for something unexpected. The old woman was pleased. She had recognized the dragon girl from the very beginning. remembering her year of life with Dormy reliable enough that she wouldn't confuse who she was. It turned out that she was the old woman's own daughter, her daughter who once lived with her in this house until she became independent and now lives her own life. Jade empathized with grandmother's feelings and said that it was a difficult experience, although she did not have her own children, at least not yet, and she only thought about how it might feel as a result. Jade imagined her children with Garnet and their joy. It was a bitter moment because they would undoubtedly someday leave and become independent. Of course, our protagonist sobbed. And grandmother also cried a little strangely. Despite this, she admitted that she wanted to stay with her grandchildren again but decided not to pressure them. She was well aware, demanding that they return home is selfishness. It was a happy moment when a funny neighbor suddenly appeared out of nowhere and just ate the leftovers right in front of her. On the second day, while the old woman nodded and sympathized with the girl who clearly had nowhere to return to, grandmother pretended she hadn't said a word and pretended not to notice her. Candy was deliberately left over her to eat along with everything else, an old memory that the woman cherished. Jade thanked her for her contribution to her development. Like her grandmother, she expresses gratitude for having known happiness. There was a friend beside her in the house. But she was not going to tell Dorami about it. She was afraid it would scare the girl again, as it had before. After that, all the grandmother wanted was to treat Dorami like her own granddaughter. But the white dragon misunderstood and decided that she was angry, so the girl ran away in anger, and then everything happened as in the legends. So it was a relief for the woman's parents to see the misfortune grow healthy, to make their prayers at the wishing fountain truly worthwhile, especially since the new guardian of the girl turned out to be a sensitive, kind-hearted man. Of course, Jade is sure that Dorami also thinks about her grandmother's kindness, but the old woman does not wait for any confirmation, because meeting her again is already too much for her. After the late-night conversation, Jade leaves the room, though now he looks embarrassed. He already knows the truth from the caring grandmother's perspective. This leads him to the decision to become a mediator between Dorami and her grandmother. On the third day in Linvok, Dorami buys a small basket of peaches and is wildly happy. Finally, she will finish and give them to her grandmother. Important, she did not eat a single one, and that is already a victory. And now Jade is 99.9% sure that the old woman will do it. She understands how sorry she was, since this matter was really theirs. Jade repeatedly chases to find the grandmother so that Dorami apologizes sooner, because the longer she waits, the harder it will be for her. She decides not to tell the dragon girl about them, but engages in conversation and respects the elderly woman's choice. While I guide Dorami onto the right path and at the same time keep everything under control. In the end, it turns out to be a win for both, at least for now, especially considering the girl's determination to do what is necessary. Because they do it immediately after they arrive at the old woman's house and give her the basket of fruit. Martyr's anxiety nests in her head, and she gathers courage and secretly calls her grandmother. She crouches in submission to apologize, acknowledging her past sins, silently sits in the attic and occasionally steals food, anxiously awaiting the old woman's response. Finally, she hears news from her, a smile on her face, a gentle question, and that is probably what the dragon girl had been waiting for from the very beginning. Enjoy the food she left for you. Tears were already in Dorami's eyes when he told his grandmother that everything was so delicious, whether the food was hot or not. The old woman replied coldly, smiling, and since then seemed to remind Dorami, come back anytime and try the food again. If he didn't need to say again that he did not consider the dragon girl a troublemaker, on the contrary, Dorami fully understood her reasons. He appreciated her cooking, perhaps for the first time since they met. The girl hugged her grandmother and sincerely thanked her for everything, shining with a smile, probably the warmest the old woman had seen from this child. So she told Romeo about her plan to bake a peach cake and ordered him to eat it as well. How much joy the excitement in her stomach brought her when they offered to help the old lady. After that, the three happily ate dessert, savoring the last hours before they would part ways. Finally, Dorami waved goodbye to the grandmother after giving her a gift. Late that night, Jade and the white dragon returned to the capital as if a nostalgic scent still lingered there, besides the usual aroma of the city. They headed to the guild to do what Jade usually did, report and tell stories to the children. So Garnet and his girlfriend disappeared, but instead he was met by other adventurers, happy that he had returned, a true selfless hero. They again thanked Jade for defeating the high-level boss monster and reducing their losses, allowing them to continue their adventures in peace instead of the usual fear that someone would be sacrificed in the process. Although the real reason for all this was to get closer to Garnet, Jade was still happy that he positively influenced others, even if it was only a side effect. Finally, the moment he had been waiting for arrives as soon as Jade gets a chance to meet the receptionist. He behaves professionally, greets her with a smile, and introduces himself as if it were their first meeting. Garnet is still just as charming, and Jade feels genuine joy and expresses it openly, despite the fact that in guild communication this seems like something ordinary. Now 20 million compensation is just a small bonus that is easy to miss. Because the most important thing for both is that they can finally talk to each other again after a long pause. After Jade and Dormy returned home, they quickly sort through what they bought so Jade could easily give Garnet the gift later. But Jade also has to say there is no new information about Onyx. The records of the neighboring guild show nothing since he disappeared, no traces. The most Jade managed was to get an introductory letter from the guild director to visit the capital Vox and gather intel. There is still time, everything can be uncovered. Now they arrive and Garnet is here to meet them like at home. After such a long separation, Jade is, of course, happy to return, no longer so excited about reuniting with her beloved and just giving him her presents. But before that, Jade wants to first discuss something more important. In the middle of the deep night, the three of them went to a restaurant for dinner, and Jade had to inform Garnet. The guild has no information about what Onyx looks like in any commercial city of Lynx. She decided to check the next closest capital. But Garnet did not look at all embarrassed by the lack of information. He did not want Jade to rush off to look for her father, although he himself did not like loneliness, especially when they were not around. Jade and Dormy were equally hurt, but Jade refused to give up, even though she always wanted to be close to Garnet and make him happy from the bottom of her heart. Finding Onyx as soon as possible was the right way to do it. Garnet felt how Jade's words and his own anxieties seemed to melt away. And suddenly he was overwhelmed by the desire to introduce Jade to Onyx and directly say that she was his gentle and loving girl. But Jade was worried that Onyx would not approve of their relationship. Even though Garnet assured her everything would be fine because her father could not fail to recognize her, despite this her handsome and beautiful celestial boyfriend was too perfect for Jade. So she could not stop worrying about the thought that Onyx would not give him his daughter for no reason. After eating, Doramy felt full and took out many peaches for dessert. Three of them teased, aiming jokes at the girl's belly so big, like a dragon. After that, Garnet happily noted the generous amount of gifts from Jade and Doramy. Even though it did not affect her at all, Jade still thought she had gone a bit overboard with the gifts. Garnet reassured Jade and assured her she would appreciate everything, then found another way to express her gratitude. The boy, madly in love, shed tears over anime, but on the other hand, trouble was looming. His hand was nervous what if he really missed and didn't buy a gift for his girlfriend's bodyguard. But Garnet still thanked the little girl for letting her eat the peaches. Gifts that she considered a gift, although Jade paid for them. The dragon girl admitted that she received this gift especially for herself, pushing Jade to suggest to her to tell Garnet about her adventures and to perceive it as the same kind of act as a gift. The receptionist also wanted to hear about it. These stories were also too quirky funny. They began with the giggle of a little girl and ended with the white dragon almost falling asleep in her chair. It was very late. Jade decided that Garnet also wanted to rest. And then it turned out she is taking a day off tomorrow to be with both of them. However it was, the reasons to go to bed only after she finished her shower kept increasing. Although it was like Garnet only, she, unfortunately, was not allowed to show it in her own house, and in general at that moment there were no open public places, as if trying to compensate for her failure during the first meeting. Their unexpected neighbor turned out to be Doramy. She invited Garnet to wash up at her place for Jade's celebration. While Jade did not understand the meaning of the invitation, he did not take it seriously at all, especially since the bathroom was specially made for her. It turns out Jade was starting to burn out sometimes, although the punishment pressed, urging her to go with him and Garnet. With a heavy heart, she might stop and joke that another shield hero will arrive, but I would still say it aloud to Jade. Something more rises from there. She took the place of the receptionist, who would not have liked this idea. And so, Garnet definitely hates it so much that she shyly invites her boyfriend to come with them. When Garnet invited her boyfriend TP to join them in the bathroom, her face flushed with a blush. Her boyfriend found it hard to understand whether she was joking or seriously planning to swim Toj Thorand. It didn't matter what decision she made. Finally, she pushed away Garnet. This hero looked exhausted, although fully conscious, and even seemed more excited than before. Garnet continued without her boyfriend to accompany them, and Dorami took her to the bathroom. But it turned out Jade was not yet ready to bathe with him as a lover, especially because she still could not easily hold Garnet's hand. This turned out to be a more difficult obstacle than they expected. While Bubbles performed as a famous gloom, Dorami and Garnet entertained themselves by cleaning up after themselves, but Jade meanwhile sat in the room clearing her head, not letting the shield rise again. Yet Garnet's satisfied face just out of the bath was a beautiful sight. Look at the young man, he is falling in love. Just a moment ago, he almost lost his composure. But in the end, it was the victory of a selfless hero. It was enough for him that his heart beat day and night, because Garnet said they would go on a date tomorrow, and seeing her off was the foundation of everything. So Jade decided to practice holding Garnet's hand naturally, and in a moment, at that very second, she added weight to her palm. And when Garnet greeted them with good morning, holding a basket in her hand, it became clear there was food inside. And her sweetness was enchanting, said Jade, while spending the day with Garnet, who seemed to be the very definition of happiness that brought Jade here, facing the moment of truth that would decide whether she could hold his hand again. Moreover, the training strangely dragged on. Garnet did not take her eyes off Jade's neck, showing the reason that would remain a secret a little longer. And now Garnet shifted her attention to lunch, which, as always, she had prepared for them. Jade happily cried in front of them, finally starting her best vacation, walking around different places and doing all sorts of sweet and fun things like a new couple. During lunch, the two of them went to the park with a dragon. It was clear that Jade was delighted and about to devour Neil Garnet's creation. There is no denying they were having fun because Jade was truly enjoying herself. She realized too late that the chance to hold his hand slipped away, but the food won over holding hands. Jade ate her homemade lunch, various sandwiches with different flavors, especially egg, ham, and cheese, with the crunch of lettuce leaves and tomatoes in the background, while Jade and Dorami enjoyed the lunch that Garnet had specially prepared for them. It seemed to be the most delicious food Jade had ever tasted. Her mother would have cried with happiness then if she had heard it, maybe tears of joy. Suddenly, Jade noticed that her boyfriend was intently looking at a sign near the theater, so she suggested to him that their next stop be to watch a play. Of course, Garnet also wanted to go there, and Jade gladly went with her, especially because, according to Jade, it was the perfect place for a romantic date. The three of them sat close together and watched as the play began, which turned out to be more melancholic than Jade had hoped. The story told of a romance between two people of different social standings, a knight and a princess, whose love was not easily given due to their different statuses. Jade appreciated the luck of her position as soon as she thought it over. Although she was considered a princess, in case of anything, she still had a pretty good chance. While the play continued, Jade was considered the heroine until obstacles began to fall. And then one day came a proposal of marriage from enemies from another country. Supposedly, the two states only needed to sign a truce for the sake of their kingdoms. The princess accepted her fate, and the knight reluctantly still fulfilled her will, not even suspecting that this was where their path would go downhill. It turned out, this proposal was a trap. Enemy forces were to attack during the wedding ceremony. In the end, the knight defeated his opponents one by one, and they all converged in a duel against the prince. He snatched victory but sacrificed his own life and passed the last moments of the prince. Jade and Garnet watched the scene together with stern, focused faces. The sad and tragic story unfolding before them moved them to the depths of their souls. It was captivating, but for Jade, that very night and its trial gave him the courage to overcome the obstacles threatening his own life. Finally, he squeezed Garnet's palm and, gathering all his courage, achieved his ultimate goal. But suddenly their plans were interrupted by a loud snore. Oh no, the mighty hero had once again failed the romantic mission, but despite everything, it was already time to leave the theater. Jade carried the dragon girl on her back and thought about lost chances and the darkness she had already managed to sow. It seemed they would have to postpone holding hands until the next date. This thought flashed in Jade's mind while they settled on the spare bench, and he noticed that Garnet fixed her gaze on his neck instead of explaining why she did it. The receptionist asked when Jade would set off on their next trip. It was just a few days away. Garnet planned to introduce Jade to her mother in 2 weeks. But Jade hesitated and felt nervous. Maybe she should confess their relationship. But Garnet was sure there would be no problems because they just needed to show how close they were and receive the blessing. This is a fairly simple strategy, and in Jade's mind, an image immediately arises of what his future girlfriend could be like if it actually happened somewhere. A motivated desire ignited to finally ask the woman to hold hands. Fortunately, Granite is thinking about it too and is just as happy to do it. Who eases Jade? Because we all know he has long been struggling with inner torment. But suddenly Granite behaves the same way and it turns out he has something to say to Jade. Without unnecessary delay, the receptionist shows the ring she will give to her boyfriend, with her plan to give it to her. Jade quickly realizes the beautiful pendant has the same design as the grenades. And she finally understands all this came from his mother because the same decoration is what Garnet's parents wore in the past. That is, this valuable item is from onyx. So Jade worries whether she can really accept such a valuable gift, and Garnet wants to give it to the person he loves. And, as her mother says, a caring girl gives a gift. This necklace will allow their relationship to turn into a bond where two people love and appreciate each other. After that, Garnet wanted to become closer to Jade. And the same applied to Jade. She wholeheartedly accepted the gift and assured Garnet that they would be together forever. When everything was said and done, the receptionist wanted to put the necklace on her boyfriend. So she took a position as if hugging Jade. It was really Jade's first hug and Garnet had to put all his strength into making sure of it. Garnet simply put on the pendant. Come on, aren't they a couple? The heavenly moment ended in an instant and Jade was very happy she received a precious gift and warm love from the attentive administrator. Later she woke up and realized she was magically taken outside and she just managed to watch this drama for a moment. Moreover, Dragon Girl knew about their upcoming visit to Garnet's mother in 2 weeks and this made her glow inside because it meant she could play with Marin again. At another tone, the sun would have already set and the weather could have become cold. So Jade reached out and took the hand of his girlfriend, urging her to go home together. Garnet responded with a smile and then finally took Jade's hand and intertwined their fingers as they walked. Hamido finished this important date. Norms burst out laughing. Moreover, the team fully supported them. A few days later, Jade and Dorami arrived at the guild hall in the capital Linvok to continue gathering information about where Onyx is located. It seems the discussion has already ended, but Jade told Dormi that the guild workers will need 5 days to check if there are any Onyx records of visits. Fortunately, they are not too busy right now. The city is hosting a festival for the king's birthday, so the question remains how long will it last. Fortunately, it will take place around 3 o'clock for several days. So Dorami and Jade have time to look for souvenirs and gifts while preparing for the grand performance of Jade Mother Garnet in 10 days. Unfortunately, Jade still cannot get rid of the nervousness before meeting her future mother-in-law. But she understands this shows how close they are to their blessings, all thanks to a chance encounter. Dormi saw how Jade became a bit more confident that everything would work out as it should, especially after a few days ago, he managed to hold Garnet's hand. Jade listened to the anxious dragon girl who noticed the place where there were a great many people. Without wasting a moment, they headed to where the spirit was. Of course, the festival was in full swing, a true celebration, and without shops and stalls it would have made no sense. The dragon girl would not have missed the chance to visit almost everything until she got a little tired. Dorami slowly sipped the juice she had bought earlier, and with a satisfied expression on her face decided to share it with the creature named Mamachi. It turns out that Mamachi is the name of a peach pit that he cared for all the time, and now they will live in the Garnet house until they return home. But the dragon girl is looking for a suitable gift for Mamachi when she notices a tray. It seems she was interested in the competition to determine who among all the young girls is the funniest. Dorami wants to join right now to boast about her achievements in front of Marin. Although this is actually a national event, if she participates, her goal is definitely to win gold. Jade registers the disaster in the event dispatcher, and she persistently urges her to buy the necessary suit or weapon to win the competition. Dorami says there is no need for that. She believes that her glasses with a pen are quite enough to become the champion. It seems Laurette is the winner. Incredible, what a magical costume that is. Garnet might be suitable for the contest, but Jade thinks it would be better if Dorami bought something that matched her outfit. Fortunately, the words that trying something new is a good idea and can create good memories convince Dora to enter the competition. One more decisive push is needed for her to perform the trick, so Jade convinces the dragon girl. Marin will be thrilled if she tells her cool stories about fashion as expected. Then it is time for them again to pick out clothes in that clothing store. The rookie finds the perfect accessory for victory, even if it is a skull that frightens rather than amuses. But above all, Jade cannot bring herself to say that it is a bad idea and that it might prevent her from winning, although it is clear that she does not like him immediately after the call from Dorami. A young girl named Dell appeared to help customers with their shopping. And definitely not because she is a lost child torn from her mother, as the White Dragon decided. It turns out Dell helps her parents receive customers in their shop. This is perfect because Jade believes she can get sound advice from her about femininity. She asks for recommendations on accessories that will match her dress. And although this is not exactly what Dorami wanted, Dell shows them a moon medallion. Without a doubt, it is much better suited for the competition. For some reason, Dell even lights up when he finds out that the disaster in the contest is aiming for gold, and even offers to bet on doing makeup and fixing nails. No wonder the dragon girl does not want to exert herself, but Dell is not finished yet. She presses Dorami to listen. This is advice from the very one who took first place in last year's competition. The unexpected revelation leaves Dorami in shock and complete confusion. But the lesson continues now. It is about how to wear high heels and walk gracefully with them. After that, Dell shows Dragon Girl how it is done, and first place without a doubt success. Unlike Dorami, who needs a lot of practice, she still remains just as cute to Dell's eyes. Dorami, in response to the compliment, praises her even more and wishes her luck in the competition while they continue their conversation. Dorami was a little worried about her new rival after endless battles. She swore that she would not give up her first place under any circumstances. She was just afraid. The vulnerable girl, Dorami, apparently only worked part-time to help her parents. "We will take you," they said, but high heels were still important to win. Kind-hearted Dell offered her enemies shoes, even though it was sunny outside. Dorami did not want to have anything to do with those divine shoes, but it was hard for her to refuse Dell. So Jade intervened. She decided to buy a pair in the store, and the owner's daughter was delighted. In the final round, the two rivals stopped facing each other, staring closely and not looking away to prove who truly deserves to win. Mocking the music of her rival, the confident champion declared her superiority and stepped onto the stage. Every step radiated elegance. She flawlessly repeated the graceful walk that brought victory last year. Instead of waiting, the rival revealed her improvement, a precise step honed by endless training. A dramatic mishap occurred right in the middle of the performance. Her heel broke. Resolutely, without hesitation, the rival rushed forward. She smiled, but it was clear. The heel broke, the heel snapped, it wobbled, and this could have been her last attempt. Holding the broken heel firmly, she froze for a moment. Nearby, the crowd whispered in stunned silence. Torn between pride and gratitude, she urged the rival to go and claim her own glory. The young girl resisted, reminding herself of yesterday's encouragement and the year she had spent preparing. Without waiting a second, she extended her own shoes, deciding to repay the kindness once shown to her. Smiling broadly, the younger girl handed her shoes without hesitation and urged, as if to say, "Give confidence in return." She refused pity. She insisted, "Barefoot it's easier," and she didn't even flinch, though she was making the same sacrifice. As she disappeared behind the curtain, the older girl silently prepared to leave with pride. Loud applause sounded behind her performance in the dressing room. Her friends supported her with cheerful music and joy. Tears welled up in her eyes as she watched and understood. True victory comes through kindness, not through competition. Applause filled the hall as she confidently stepped forward, ready to perform in borrowed heels. That same day, laughter spread through the park when she shared her award with him. Without warning, she dashed away, overwhelmed by emotions that could no longer be contained. Gasping, she demanded an answer. Why sacrifice the rivalry to another girl? Just smile gently. Even knowing she had lost, the rival had no regrets. Helping her was worth everything. Shining with joy, she held the gleaming trophy tightly, a special gift meant for friendship. Sincere tribute sounded along with the music, and the movements impressed both hearts even beyond the final scores. With mutual respect, they sealed the bond. Rivalry transformed into something deeper and lasting. Laughter replaced tension. The girls who once competed now smiled side by side without any reproach. A few days later, the Guildhall buzzed again. Their adventure continued far beyond the contest stage. During the meeting near the counter, Jade announced that his patience had run out, while Garnet calmly reviewed the materials of the report about his quest. She quickly and skillfully examined the mana stone. He silently admired her composure and refined, graceful manner. One look from her was enough for him to completely melt under her professionalism. Her charm was irresistible. Even the earned wealth was not Jade's main treasure. The reason he returned every time was precisely her. While he was snooping in the park in search of Dorami, unease was creeping in despite her cheerful appearance. Jade noticed something strange about Dorami. Among the other children, she behaved differently than usual. She was not as cheerfully bubbly. When he called out, she smiled warmly, but something hidden flickered in her eyes. She insisted that everything was fine, but Jade did not let himself be fooled. Her sadness was easy to read. Reluctantly, she admitted her friends had become travelers and left her stories behind for real quests. Fearing to grow old, Dorami confessed, "If everyone leaves, who else will listen to her tales?" Dorami finally admitted her weakness. Without Jade's support, her stories sounded empty and powerless. Jade proposed a new path, short missions as a messenger, a personal adventure within the possible. He successfully calmed her down. One completed mission will make others admire her again. His faith in her kept him going. Dorami announced that she had decided to become his official envoy. Wishing to prove herself, she started with Aaron's task. Her first solo mission had just begun. Nervous but determined, Dorami entered the tailor's shop to proudly pick up Jade's order. With a bright smile and gratitude, she thanked Taylor for the confidence that had already begun to blossom. In the laundry, her spirit was warmed by the familiar praised voice. She really had finished it herself, without anyone's help. She dreamed of sharing stories again, this time fueled by real missions and gained experience. Just as joy filled her chest, a sharp hiss suddenly shattered the calm. Danger approached instantly. Fists up, Dorami shouted at the bigger cat, demanding to leave the smaller cat alone. The cat growled threateningly. Dorami prepared for battle. Courage trembled and flickered behind restless eyes. She faltered in the middle of the threat and offered terms of surrender, but the cat hissed, choosing violence over peace. The cat lunged forward. Dorami screamed and went into a frenzy as the mad animal clawed its way higher and higher. Her sword was stolen and pride was scratched. She helplessly watched as the cat ran away the victor. The cat dashed up the stairs with her sword. Dorami rushed after her and shouted fiercely. Stumbling from exhaustion, she finally stopped. The chase had drained her strength more than she expected. Nearby, unfamiliar people and strange streets, and she suddenly realized she was lost on the road and alone. Before panic could settle in, a large hand gently rested on her head unexpectedly for her. She shuddered from surprise. She knew this voice, warm like a relative's, but she did not expect it in this place at all. As December spoke this in Dorami, they noticed a familiar figure. A siren was approaching, along with her childhood caretaker. Dorami enters Old Guild Alley and unexpectedly reunites with Swearin, a skilled apothecary. Swearin was preparing medicine, and for Dorami, her time for a conversation about an urgent personal matter was perfect. They decide to go together, understanding that the streets at night hide quiet, insidious threats. Side by side, Dorami feels how unspoken feelings grow heavier with every step. Returning home, Dorami invents a story, hiding her emotions behind a tale about stolen swords. She hoped to prove herself, but in the end got lost and was left without a sword. Confidence faded when she admitted defeat. She thought her failures made her unfit for adventure stories. He calmed her with a steady gaze, explaining that every traveler sooner or later stumbles and loses their way. Recalling his own mistakes, he gently made her understand, failure is part of how one becomes stronger. Realizing his words, she understood, growth is not in victory but in enduring and learning from hardships. Encouraged by his words, Dorami vowed to become stronger and thanked Swearin for the help. Just as they gathered for the day, an unexpected knock interrupted this quiet moment. By the door stood Garnet, holding something carefully, with such a calm yet mysterious expression on her face. In her arms lay Mamachi, a small creature that Dorami had not seen for weeks. She was greeted sincerely and warmly, thanked for kindness, and amazed at Mamachi's incredible growth since their separation. Smiles on everyone around, they decided to celebrate the reunion with a shared dinner after resting. Garnet was glad they were so energetic, and the conversation subtly shifted to the upcoming journey. Anxiety over Onyx's absence did not let go, but she hinted at a possible lead worth checking. Digging deeper, he found out Onyx once used the guild's services 14 years before this. From the very beginning, the guild was limited to 12 years, but then they checked deeper and came across records no one expected. And studying old records, they realized Onyx could have traveled for years, continuing to cross distant borders. Unlike most, Onyx plunged into journeys between the borders of different nations, chasing the adrenaline of a true adventure alone. Believing in him, they swore to search until they found the one who inspired them. Together, they imagined Onyx's return, friends all around, and every incredible story told under the starry sky. When the day of departure came, the train rushed forward and pulled them into the very beginning of something much bigger. The Dorami joyfully and excitedly exclaimed, pressing Mamachi to themselves, feeling that their journey was very close in a moment. Inside the train, excitement mixed with silence. Some rushed away in their hearts for reasons deeper than the landscape. Garnet admitted her anxiety, her chest tightens and her heart breaks in anticipation, not illness but bare, torn worries. She finally revealed the truth. They arrived at her home and together met her mother. Despite his advice to pretend everything was different, she longed to present him as a truly important person. Holding his hands over his heart, Granite confessed that he means the whole world to her. Enthralled and exhausted, he vowed to become even better for her sake and for their future. Her soft laughter dissolved the tension, and he felt this was already enough, even more than necessary. While the train rolled on, their thoughts were already reaching toward warmth, gifts, and handmade surprises. They began knitting together, each crafted one glove, planning a warm exchange that symbolized mutual care. Trying on the gloves, Jade honestly admitted that she was still struggling even just to finish the scarf. Embarrassed by the 10th rough attempt, he was surprised when Garnet kindly praised her. While Garnet had not yet finished hers, Jade forced himself to become better for her sake. When she was asked about the measurements, Garnet froze. Her heart was too full to answer with words alone. Blushing, she quietly asked to take his hand. She wanted closeness more than precise measurements. Granite carefully reached out her hand to his palm. The touch was light, and her gaze flickered with gentle warmth. When their fingers intertwined, Jade's heart raced wildly. She didn't know if it was love or just a precise calculation. Carefully trying on each finger, Jade trembled with joy. She was overwhelmed by how close it was. He awkwardly agreed to check hers too, nervously convincing himself it was only for knitting. In the silence, they no longer looked away from each other. No excuses, only emotions quietly passing between their eyes. Holding her hand, Jade marveled at its delicacy, warmth, and flawless elegance. His gentle touch accidentally tickled her more than he intended, and her soft smile broke into laughter. And despite embarrassed apologies, Granite assured him the moment had already passed and her nerves had completely relaxed. Then they all had breakfast together on the train, enjoying the journey and delicious sandwiches with pomegranates. As Dorami reached for the jam, the train jerked sharply, and everyone was thrown into chaos right in the middle of eating. The train stopped abruptly, and the conductor called for help from any capable adventurer on board. The news exploded. A giant monster was rushing straight at the train, rapidly approaching and threatening to devour the entire train along with the passengers. Jade rushed inside and learned about the mighty monster, the Iron Eater, which threatens the train. Iron Eater devours metal. It tears trains whose armor is stronger than steel, putting everyone on board at risk. Despite the absence of a formal order or reward, Jade insists on destroying the monster without any compensation. Determined, Jade demands immediate instructions, hurries to protect everyone before the monster reaches the passengers. Passengers watch as he goes. Jade silently vows no monster will ruin their journey and safety. Jade confidently says goodbye behind him. Passengers cheer joyfully, and one woman quietly observes. At the monster's location, Jade inspects what happened. Fortunately, the railway damage remained surprisingly minimal. Without hesitation, he rushes forward. His first goal is to pull Iron Eater away from the tracks. With incredible strength, he lifts the monster, stunning the train crew with his undeniable power. Clenching pure energy, Jade launches a fierce attack, hurls the beast far away with explosive force. A thunderous shockwave covers the field. The Iron Eater is pulverized in a thunderous explosion. Passengers and staff freeze at the window, silently watching. No one expected such devastating power. Cheers erupt around Jade. While the team arranges everything for repairs, he calmly assures them he is fine. Before returning to her place, Jade thanks Dorami and Garnet for their sincere encouragement and support. Garnet gently praises him, grateful and impressed. Jade, a little shy but happy, smiles in response. When the train moves again, Jade silently touches her own smile with her thoughts, the greatest reward one could dream of. That evening, they were looking for accommodation. Due to railway repairs, only one room remained available. Jade assumed he would sleep outside. Garnet calmly offered to share the space, surprising him with unexpected kindness. Her face was gentle but firm. She could not allow Jade to stay. Their rescuer sleeps outside alone. He accepted the offer with gratitude. Awkward thoughts appeared and swirled. He realized one room means having to be close all night. As soon as Jade steps over the threshold, she freezes with slight panic. There is clearly only one bed here. Jade suggests sleeping on the floor. Sharing a bed with two girls seems impossible. As soon as Dorami managed to settle, she immediately falls asleep and the bed remains entirely for Garnet. Garnet notices how Jade clumsily prepares her place. Her calm voice confuses him. The gentle advice sounded unexpected. With a small nod, Garnet confirms she expects Jade to share the bed next to her. Garnet quietly hints that they need to get closer and squeeze together. Jade is significant, unsure how to respond to her proposal. Jay is panicking inside him, misunderstands her anxiety. Suddenly, thoughtlessly, he blurts out a compliment about her scent. Confused, he hears Garnet admit she wouldn't mind sleeping next to him. His brain almost shorts out. His thoughts whirl out of control. He begins to argue about Dorami's position, trying to calm down. For a moment they lie silently side by side. Jade, opening her eyes, cannot believe this is happening. Closely pressed together, Jade choked with excitement. The warmth of the pomegranates and their aroma gently distracted him. Sleep vanished completely. Eyes wide open, heart pounding, Jade understands. Tonight he definitely will not sleep peacefully. Eventually, exhaustion wins. When he begins to drift into sleep, he involuntarily reaches closer to her. The next day, despite exhaustion, Jay arrives in the hometown of Garnet and Doramia, Laboon, and joins them. Moon Garnet invites them inside. Jade remains uncomfortable, while Dorami gladly accepts the offer without any hesitation. They arrive at the Garnet orphanage. Jade silently watches, stunned by how it feels too significant. Granat asks what happened. Jade nervously admits, everything here seems soaked with the sacred. After all, she grew up within these walls. To calm him down, Garnet quietly explains, it's just an old house and her mother is not home right now. The young girl notices Dorami and rushes to her. Unable to contain her joy, everyone has gathered for the reunion. Joy fills the room, old friends have met again. Dorami tightly hugs her friend, so eager to share everything immediately. Garnet serves tea and Dorami bursts with happiness. The mood is calm and warm. Jade notices how Dorami has grown and Garnet explains, she worked hard to join them in adventures. The girls eagerly ask for a joint task. Jade promises protection and Garnet cautiously agrees. Laughter follows him. Garnet allows the walk, but only the day after tomorrow. The girls celebrate, trembling with pure joy. Watching them, Jade hopes this journey will become a warm memory for them and for himself. In the kitchen, Garnet calmly prepares food. The frying softly rustles, filling the silence in the room. Jade watches her cook, mesmerized. She looks incredibly beautiful, but there is something unusual in her facial expression. Anxiously, he asks if she is okay. Garnet admits her heart also cannot stop beating wildly. Anxiously, Jade wonders if he looks strange. Garnet gently reassures he looks quite decent both inside and out. When she calls him handsome, Jade instantly freezes. Her honesty completely knocks him off his feet, and in all his social awkwardness, he becomes utterly confused. Garnet insists that her praise is sincere, and Jade blushes warmly. She is overwhelmed by how kind and honest she is. She continues and lists Jade's strengths, reliability, kindness, and a calm character. She truly trusts him. Overwhelmed with emotions, Jade falls to the floor in shock and without hesitation shouts about love. Lying on the floor, he thanks her for going on dates with him. His feelings pour out without any restraint. Garnet smiles gently and checks if she is okay mentally. Jade flinches, frightened by her sudden closeness and warmth. Embarrassed but honest, Garnet wants Jade to touch her as tenderly as before. Jade reaches out and runs his fingers through her soft hair, nervous, but completely captivated. He admires her radiant smile and suddenly realizes, when her happiness touches him, it feels like that is everything. The group returns cheerfully from a walk. Dinner is already ready, and Garnet's mother is about to be home any moment. At that very moment, the mother calmly appears and solemnly yet lightly announces that she has returned, casually throwing out, "I'm home." When the door opens, Jade realizes, before her stands an elegant woman, none other than Garnet's mother. Just having entered the house, Jade noticed Garnet's mother, graceful and kind, radiating calm. Nervous but not giving up, he straightened up while Garnet's mother looked at the unfamiliar guests confusedly and attentively. Without any hesitation, he stated his name, and Durham's friendly tone immediately eased the atmosphere in the room. Durham praised her name and asked for a handshake. This momentarily threw Sandra off balance, but she was pleasantly surprised. Touched by Durham's openness, Sandra smiled warmly, feeling the genuine affection of the lively young girl. Wishing to make a good impression, Jade sincerely presented gifts to Garnet's mother. The wide assortment of items surprised everyone. He had prepared so carefully that nothing seemed inappropriate. Despite all efforts, anxiety crept in. Jade doubted whether his actions really looked natural or were too excessive. Passive, Sandra appreciated the gifts, but Jade quietly worried that their intentions regarding her daughter would become too noticeable. Even while smiling, Jade feared her reaction, still hoping someday for approval and sincere acceptance. Dinner had already started, but Jade could not eat. The nervous tension still hung in the air while Sandra enjoyed Garnet's homemade dish. Although the conversation flowed naturally, Jade was still somewhere else, distracted and burdened by the topic that remained unspoken. Encouraged by Dora's gesture, Jade tried to compose herself and looked at Garnet's calm, supportive expression. He finally stood up. His voice was steady, determined. He was going to speak honestly and face directly what was happening. Before he could continue, Sandra unexpectedly interrupted, and Jade became confused, beginning to doubt his previous behavior. Jade gathered his thoughts and sincerely thanked Sandra for helping Marin in such a difficult time. Sandra admitted she already knew everything. She smiled warmly and, responding, expressed gratitude. Without retreating, Jade silently confirmed to himself to be honest and fully earn her trust. Without any hesitation, he confessed their relationship, clearly stating that he was now dating Garnet. After a long pause, Sandra smiled gently, quietly, and wordlessly, acknowledging their connection with calm and approval. To Jade's surprise, both Garnet and Sandra already knew everything and were completely supportive. Sandra's calm smile reassured Jade, and she slowly realized her approval had already been silently given. When she was directly asked, Sandra confirmed her blessing, recognizing the true love between the young couple. Together, Garnet and Jade openly showed their feelings, finally voicing the promise they had previously kept in silence. Therefore, having complete trust in Sandra, Jade promised to protect Garnet's happiness and preserve their relationship going forward. When Sandra was allowed, the mood immediately lightens. Everyone smiles, finally ready to enjoy their meal. The next morning, Jade and Darm greeted Garnet, cheerfully welcomed them, and wished a peaceful day. Durham followed the amazing aroma, and Garnet explained that breakfast was already ready, gently warmed especially for them. Seeing this sight, Durham rushed downstairs, excited, hungry for the warm, enticing breakfast already laid out before him. While eating, Garnet revealed that this was the very soup used to create Jade's gifts, and her efforts were finally truly appreciated. Durham suggested going out. Garnet agreed on the condition that everyone was satisfied with the idea. Jade asked to be shown the city. Everyone agreed and plans quickly formed. Delighted by the opportunity, Jade took this outing as a rare and truly valuable home date from her hometown. During the walk, Jade and Garnet silently held hands, enjoying each other's presence and warmth. They talked about visiting familiar places. Jade remained focused on the soft feeling of Garnet's hand. He arrived at the large estate yard where colorful flowers bloomed and stopped to admire the lush garden. Walking side by side, Jade praised the peaceful town and lauded its soothing natural atmosphere. Durham noticed the wall paintings, and Garnet explained why the city loves plants so much and respects the artistic tradition. They approached another large estate behind a brick wall. Its appearance was distinctive and impeccably maintained. The group found out this was the house of Kamasi, once owned by a legendary artist a century ago. Garnet explained the artist's travels and sources of inspiration, while he, admiring the murals on the old walls, carefully examined them. Once the father had seen those paintings, they inspired him to travel and become an adventurer himself. The group silently stood before the grand house, absorbing its age, history, and craftsmanship. Suddenly, Durham exclaimed and hurriedly called Jade, urging him to look at something amazing inside the neighboring shop. To Jade's surprise, a tiny statuette depicting himself stood on display with unexpected detail and a bold shine. Jade confirmed that the statue resembled him. He felt pleased but a little embarrassed by the likeness. To his surprise, Garnet suggested buying the figurine, showing affection with a quiet gesture. While Jade hesitated, Dorm took it as a lucky charm and accepted it wholeheartedly. They continued watching together. The cheerful atmosphere expanded, and while they walked, laughter filled the air. In the toy store, Garnet remembered how her father used to bring her here to buy materials for drawing. Jade recognized familiar drawings in Garnet's house and realized that her childhood was filled with creative sketches. She recalled how difficult it was for her to draw serious portraits. Her father always showed exaggerated, funny facial expressions. Despite the embarrassment, Garnet believed that her father was proud, so she showed her drawings to the townspeople. Tension grew as they discussed Onyx's long absence. 12 years without contact was extremely worrying. Jade silently made a promise to find Onyx and find out where he was at any cost. A quiet moment passed between them, their gazes were filled with thoughts unspoken aloud and shared anxiety. Garnet thanked him, gently reminding that their present time together was just as deeply meaningful. They stood side by side, holding hands, ready to face whatever came next together. Jade spent peaceful days in Garnet's hometown, slowly growing closer to Sandra through shared meals. In elsewhere, Dorami and Morin cheerfully fought monsters, honing their skills and strengthening friendship during dynamic field quests. The warmth from the Garnet family enveloped with coziness, and every moment in Laboon became deeply meaningful for everyone. After 3 quiet days, their company gathered at dawn. Each had to say goodbye to Laboon and go their separate ways. Smiling sincerely, Sandra said goodbye to them, grateful for the visit although it lasted only briefly. Before parting, everyone promised to return soon with new stories and gifts for Garnet. Sandra tightly hugged Garnet to herself, reminding her to stay warm and not catch a cold in winter. With a gesture, she responded to the embrace and gently assured Sandra she would take care of everything. Suddenly, Sandra kissed Garnet on the cheek and Jade froze, all red with surprise. With a smile, she explained the family tradition, kissing cheeks. Smoothing Jade's confused reaction with a smile, she smiled slightly in response only to herself. Garnet quietly pondered the meaning of that quick farewell kiss. Jade secretly dreamed of kissing Garnet, but doubted that the moment would ever be right. They announced their departure. Jade's thoughts were interrupted as the company hurried to the station platform. Everyone waved from the train window, promising to return, while Garnet and Morin cheerfully saw them off. When the train disappeared in the mountains, Jade gently pressed her chest and tenderly cherished the moment of farewell. The next day after returning, Maureen sat quietly and looked outside, while the lace of crayons scattered nearby. Jade suggested resting for a whole week. They were still recovering after the long journey home. Maureen fell over her sketches, theatrically declaring that art had sucked all the physical strength out of her. When she was called somewhere, she would flare up and, it seemed, her real combat tools for searching the city. Surprising him even more, she insisted on armor, a true novice traveler. Jade quietly but persistently asked Dorami if her growing interest in travel was more than just simple curiosity. She was surprised that he noticed, but Jade explained it had always been visible from her behavior. He reminded her how excited she was while questing and asked if she would consult the king. Reimai admitted that she herself wanted to become like that, but her voice broke. It trembled with hesitation and doubt. With a quiet hand touching the dragon emblem, she confessed her fear that she did not deserve it. Jade explained that dragons can also receive emblems, and Dorami still had no idea about this. He remembered a rare monster capable of using flower crests, and admiration flashed in Dorami's eyes. Jade revealed that the crest granting the crystal ball originated from a powerful creature named the Devil. Devil trees offered magical fruits, but using their power carried serious risks for body and mind. Fortunately, only their mana stone could safely grant crests even to monsters like Dorami, not just humans. Dorami finally understood that a flower crest could truly be created, and her dream was not unattainable. Encouraged by Jade's support, she shouted joyfully, hoping she could now become a true adventurer. His determination reminded Jade of her own childhood, stirring old memories of ambition and excitement. She rushed to change clothes, and he planned a meeting with the king to obtain approval. Although confident in her dragon form, he hoped she would still learn practical defense for safety. Dorami proudly descended downstairs in her best dress, and Jade reaffirmed his promise to support her dreams. Outside the royal castle, Jade wondered if the king would approve the dragon's wish to set out on a journey. Seeing his arrival, the king decided that Jade had come to accept the throne as heir. Standing confidently before the monarch, Dorami formally greeted him after what seemed like a long time. The king immediately recognized Arami and asked if she had behaved well since their last meeting. Firmly holding her confidence, Dorami stated that she asks his permission to become an official adventurer. Despite his surprise, the king questioned her why this was necessary, reminding her she was already under royal protection. Dorami respectfully explained her gratitude, but at the same time said she wanted to bring joy by traveling. Her desire was inspired by Jade's tireless efforts to help others, left an indelible mark. Dorami told how Jade's journey inspired her desire to improve. She wants her shoes to grow strong and useful too. She bowed low to the king, sincerely begging permission to officially pursue her dream. Impressive. Impressed by her growth, the king gave approval and called her a future adventurer of the kingdom. With gratitude in her voice, Dorami promised to achieve success and never disappoint those who believed in her. Just as she was celebrating, the king turned to Jade, signaling that he had something important to discuss. The king praised Jade's guard, entrusting him to continue leading Dorami along her chosen path. Eagerly setting out on the road, Dorami greedily followed Jade to the guild, pondering what her future would be like correctly. The young girl exclaimed joyfully after the king gave her permission to register as a traveler. Suddenly recalling Marin's advice, she confidently prepared her documents so that the registration would proceed without delays. Anxiously thinking about the lack of money and absence of any details, she panicked until he offered help without hesitation. Since she had no real name, she decided to officially accept the one he gave her. With the surname Jade and a fictitious birthday, she completed the registration and became part of his family. Realizing that she was repeating Marin's path, Dorami excitedly declared her 12th birthday as the beginning. Jade gently congratulated him on his birthday and she sincerely smiled, touched by his thoughtful gesture. When asked about her hometown, she recalled the cold weather and life alongside a mysterious older woman. Reimai was revealed that the woman could transform into a dragon, and they taught her language and daily life. Quietly reflecting, Dorami wondered if that woman so kind and powerful was not her real mother. The woman led Dorami out of danger and ordered her never to reveal her dragon form again. Dorami remembered how she was left alone after that and began her path without any clues and with no clear goal ahead. Since her place of birth remained unknown, Jade entered Kasada village in the documents as her official place of origin. With confidence, Dorami introduced herself to the guild, proudly stating her name, age, and place of birth. Despite the watchful eyes of the crowd, she remained calm. Everything needed for a perfect registration had already been rehearsed. To complete her registration, Dorami placed her dominant hand on the orb for determining the emblem. Quietly, she wished for an emblem of enhancement or attacker as her palm touched the paddle. A wonderful pattern flashed on the surface of the orb. This meant she had received a floral emblem. The result showed an offensive token, just as she had hoped, immediately after completing the official registration. When the procedure was completed, Dorami was officially recognized as a full-fledged adventurer for the first time. Dorami. Reimai received applause and congratulations from the guild members, stunned by their unexpected warmth and support. The next morning, she excitedly visited the arsenal again, impressed by Jade's generous gift. He lied about the price of the shield, knowing, if he told the truth, she would reject anything expensive. With gratitude and admiration, Dorami held her first shield confidently and proudly, determined to become stronger like Mer. While Dorami rushed off to find a weapon, Jade quietly worried that she was not yet fully ready. In the armory, Dorami stopped disappointed. No weapon met her expectations. Nervous, she insisted on searching for the legendary Dorami sword version 2, a version composed from her imagination. Jade explained that the sword's design was impractical, but offered to make one specially to order. Excited by the idea, Dorami rushed to the blacksmith determined to demand a custom weapon. As soon as she arrived, her enthusiasm was shattered by the blacksmith's refusal to take children to work. Dorami realized the blacksmith was not scolding her, he was arguing with his own apprentice, his daughter. The girl insisted she would help her father, but he sharply and repeatedly pushed back her attempts. Jade immediately recognized extraordinary skill in the girl's sword as if the work of a master blacksmith. She revealed her promise to keep secrets while expressing love and a desire to become better despite it, regardless of. Knowing that she was skilled, the blacksmith still refused to allow her to forge weapons under his supervision. The blacksmith refused to help Kakashimina, stating that due to her lack of experience, the safety of future travelers was at risk. Kakosha Mina recognized Jade, surprised to see him here, and Dorami quietly stepped forward with her request. The blacksmith scolded the workers for loafing around, and the others froze Jade had come to visit. And Dorami clarified the sword was not for Jade and insisted that the girl herself should be involved in the matter. Putting herself under the "I'm just a child" pretense and voicing her desire, Dorami said that Kazumina should participate as well. The blacksmith instantly recognized Dorami, surprised by her fame and how her stories had spread throughout the capital. Dorami formally chose Kakajaimen as her blacksmith and expressed complete trust even though he was still very young. With unwavering confidence, Dorami declared that she was capable of creating the weapon she truly needed. Black SB. The blacksmith agreed to the decision, giving the daughter a chance while reminding Dorami of the risks. Kakashimini promised to give her all, decided not to tarnish her father's name or his craftsmanship, and she began planning the sword, suggesting a short blade due to Dorami's short stature. She insisted on preserving the dragon detail, so she proposed a more practical design option. Although impressed by the sketch, Kakajimna hesitated because she thought her father would handle such details better. She admitted that her skills were limited, fearing that the result would be too mundane from her own efforts. Dorami reassured her confidently and insisted, "Try and believe in your own strength." She lingered for a moment longer, but Dorami's calm smile soothed her more than any words. Inspired by Dorami's determination, Kakashimina realized she had already lost if she gave up without trying. She pushed her again to believe in herself, reminding her how much trust was placed in her. Hearing kind words from Dorami, she understood this was her first client ever, her very first opportunity. With new motivation, she promised to devote herself fully and guarantee that Dorami would not regret her faith. Their hands met and she officially entrusted Kataman with the task. He accepted the challenge with renewed determination. 2 weeks had passed since Dorami placed the order. The blacksmith gladly welcomed her again. The blacksmith handed over the wrapped saber. Her heart was pounding wildly, anticipation filled her chest. Her eyes flashed at the exquisite design of the sword. She admired the hilt with gargoyle motifs, proud of its shape. Dorami showed Jade the already finished weapon. He confirmed it matches her request exactly. The blade is already included. With trembling hands, she raised the sword. Magical glow barely flickered along its edge, and the blade flared brightly. Jade praised the sharpness of the sword. Dorami blushed, imagining how confidently she would defeat even a slime. Filled with joy, she thanked Kayamini, amazed by the skill and her beautiful, sunlit landscapes around. Kajimina smiled warmly. Dorami's words touched her and thanked her for such trust. When the preparations were complete, Dorami raised the sword end, eagerly prepared to test it on their first mission. Their next stop is the capital guild house. Dorami approached the counter, ready to accept missions. Dorami stood impatiently and anxiously by the counter. Jade watched from behind, sensing her tension and hesitation. The receptionist finally called her forward. Dorami froze, clutching the uniform tightly in her hands. She realized the time had come. Jade smiled, recalling Garnet's professionalism. She remained calm even when helping rookies like Durant. Ariami grenade, the gentle expression on her face did not change. Her calm presence still radiated warmth like many years ago. When Garnet glanced at Dorami, Jade could not help but admire the atmosphere she naturally created. Garnet's soft smile lowered Jadov's guard. His heart was beating wildly. He was overwhelmed by her calm warmth and blushed with embarrassment. Confused and bewildered, Jade vowed to protect Arami, hoping that Garnet would notice his devotion and that he was nearby. With clear instructions, Garnet reminded Dorami to return the Mana Stone slime after completing her mission. Dorami eagerly rushed to Jade. Her first task official was a joy that radiated outward. A brief moment passed. Jade and Garnet exchanged smiles quietly, as if acknowledging the bond that still remained between them. From afar, a slime appeared. Dorami, with the Dorami shield in hand, prepared to start her ambush. A branch cracked under her sneaker. The sound broke the silence and immediately drew the slime's attention toward her. Panic gripped Dorami. She raised her sword high. With a shout, she prepared to attack head-on. She swung too late. The slime struck first, hitting her chest and shoulder with a charge, throwing her back angrily and helplessly. Clenching her fists, Dorami decided to immediately unleash her new water magic without hesitation. Dorami burst forth with a splash of water magic. A glowing seal flashed, and the power surged forward. Her spell connected cleanly. Carried by the force of impact, she prepared for the final explosion to finish it. In her shock, the slime absorbed water and grew, and Jade explained the hydration effect. Blow after blow exhausted her. She realized neither sword nor spell worked. A different tactic was needed. Without warning, the enhanced slime surged forward again. Dorami pressed anxiously against the shield and braced for the strike. With no other options, Dorami threw a fearless blow, pouring all raw power into her fist. The clay jerked back midair. She immediately lunged forward, committing to another explosive strike. Jade froze, stunned. Despite the lack of any magical enhancements, Dorami held her position solely through sheer willpower. Panting heavily, she stood firm. Her final strike sent the slime far into the mountains. Years raged within her as she turned back to Jade. Confidently, she declared her first victory. Dorami proudly held the Manaston. Her first task was complete. The journey began simply by returning to the city. Jade beside her enjoyed the sweet treat, savoring her small but genuine victory. Jade noticed that earned rewards felt different. Dorami listened eagerly as he proposed their next stop. They needed potions, so they decided to thank Swirn, who once helped Dorami when she got lost. She cheerfully entered the pharmacy. Not every battle ends cleanly. Some require treatment, supplies, and gratitude too. Dorami cheerfully entered and froze in fear. A mysterious woman appeared in the shadows, covered in strange splashes. There, frightened, she demanded answers. The mind immediately jumped to the worst: Swirn's pain, or she was in danger. Jade breathed a sigh of relief as soon as she recognized the woman. She was Swirn's grandmother, who had come just to check on progress. Clearing up the confusion, Dorami explained her purpose. She wanted potions now that she was traveling. Ku brought her potions but warned, high-quality supplies must be used wisely, not wastefully. While wandering, Kuo asked for travel ideas. Dorami suggested Laboon, a picturesque and peaceful land. Excitedly, Dorami told about the painted hometown Kamishi. Ku listened, but Jade sharply shifted attention to what required immediate action. Jade raised the topic of Onyx, the traveler they had been tracking. Ku's reaction became tense and cautious. Although many travelers had visited her shop, she admitted, Onyx had not appeared for a long time. She clearly remembered his last visit, a strange request made 12 years ago which especially stuck in her memory. Despite the heat, Onyx bought ice and lava potion, which immediately sparked Ku's curiosity and suspicion. He casually recalled his destination, the Ice Kingdom, and this phrase from the comment lingered with him until the bloody Ku covered everything. All year, everything was covered in snow. The Ice Kingdom stood far away, fierce, and travelers rarely ventured there. Jade silently pondered, maybe Onyx disappeared right there. The memory of his departure suddenly echoed in her thoughts, vivid and sharp. She quietly processed the news. Her long-lost father had set off north to the Ice Kingdom. Although answers came, her heart remained clouded. Jade noticed her sad silence with concern. Despite the danger, Jade planned her departure, resolutely preparing to follow Onyx into the icy land. When waves of emotion overwhelmed her, she clenched the pendant, and the pain of the impending separation showed outwardly without any words. Understanding her pain, Jade gently comforted her. 12 years of absence had left deep wounds. Before parting, Garnet quietly spoke, promising to wait until both returned alive and safe. She gave him handmade jade gloves, carefully stitched to protect against the fierce cold of the Ice Kingdom. Amazed by Jade's craftsmanship, he smiled brightly. The gloves fit him perfectly, and his hands quickly warmed. He saw gratitude in her eyes. Garnet promised to cherish this memory under any circumstances. Dorami's eyes lit up with delight as soon as she heard that she would get another pair too, also handmade gloves. Jade promised to finish Dorami's gloves during the travels, setting aside a skein of yarn for this purpose. Under the starry night, Garnet said goodbye to them but stopped when Jade began to leave. She reached for her pendant, stopping him, feeling hesitation. Jade turned back with anxiety before he could say anything. She gently grabbed his hand, overwhelmed by feelings she could not fully express. Garnet tightly held Jade's hands and with a trembling voice begged him to return to her alive. Her gaze softened, hope sparkled in her eyes, silently begging him not to break her heart. Jade froze silently, choked by a wave of emotions, not knowing how to respond to her quiet but poignant request. Without any hesitation, she leaned forward, closing the distance between them, and their feelings finally reached the limit. A peak wrapped in silence under the moonlight, they embraced. He held her like a promise unspoken. Jade and Garnet shared a quiet, intimate moment. They touched foreheads and said everything without words. Their fingers gently intertwined, sealing a sincere promise under the stars, and then parted again, each going their own way. Watching them go again, Garnet barely smiled, holding tightly to the warmth of their shared promise. Left in silence, she clenched her hands together, trying to calm the rising pain. Now lovers, their separation still hurts. Distance always brought sadness, even when love remained strong. The night lunar silence. Garnet under the moonlight remembered how she almost kissed Jade earlier. She touched her pendant, wondering when she would dare to truly reveal her feelings. Quietly praying, she accepted her limits, only hoping they would return safely and quickly. In the morning, their journey began. Jade and Dorami set off, while Garnet stayed watching from afar. They walked past endless forests and snowy mountains, heading on a cold path to the Ice Kingdom. After a week of travel, Dorami shivered uncontrollably, and the relentless cold finally defeated her. Before them stretched the snowy vastness of the Ice Kingdom, mysterious, harsh, and painfully beautiful. Struggling with the wind and frost, Jade suggested finding a shelter. Dorami, trembling from the cold, agreed without any hesitation. She noticed it nearby. Jade immediately pointed out even with a hot spring to warm up. The innkeeper met them and let them inside, giving warmth and rest from the merciless northern cold. Dorami cheerfully told about their search plans, and the innkeeper immediately asked who they were as travelers. Hearing that the village lacked a guild, she proudly raised her hand, showing her sign. Despite her small stature, Dorami proudly declared the attacker as the cross. The hotelier felt excitement from her passion. In response, the innkeeper showed his 5-petaled enhancer sign, earned through years of persistent experience. His age slowed his movements, but the past remained powerful. Dorami stood in stunned silence before his strength. The innkeeper told how younger villagers leave for work, hinting that the capital offers more chances for adventure. Jade listened attentively, sincerely thanked the man, and cautiously began to rethink where to go next. Caution: that night while Dorami slept peacefully, Jade silently studied everything, carefully planning the next step. Examining the map, Jade realized the capital was far beyond the horizon, far beyond the surrounding mountains and forests. To track down Onyx, they will have to pass through dangerous terrain. The road ahead will test their strength. Jade once again confirmed his decision. No matter the cost, he will find Onyx for Garnet. Clutching the map, he quietly asked Garnet to wait, promising that they would return with answers. 12 years after the Onyx journey began, they stopped for the night in a quiet, snowy village. Having endured the bitter cold, they finally felt warmth and began planning their departure to the royal capital. Both travelers praised the healing hot spring, and the leader nostalgically recalled happier days in the city. The leader explained how the youth migrated away, leaving behind an aging and shrinking local workforce. Hearing about the shortage of labor, Jade offered help with work at the sawmill before continuing their capital-bound path. Caring for their safety, the manager warned about dangerous monsters surrounding the forested work areas. Before worry could spread further, companion Jade confidently declared that he was an adventurer of rank 10. The manager froze, realizing that Jade was the very heroine known throughout the Kingdom of Sundel. His legacy inspired young villagers to rush into adventures, unknowingly causing the decline of their own villages. Jade sincerely apologized, but the manager thanked him for inspiring hope in the village youth. Rumors about Jade's antics inspired the village youth to seek a life full of adventures. Once you were too afraid to go, now the manager thanked Jade for inspiring courage. Although Jade set out on a journey for a selfish reason, he realized others were inspired on their part. It was a consequence of his accidental actions. Proud of his decision, Jade agreed to help, and his strength instilled confidence in everyone. Meanwhile, as they prowled among the trees, they encountered problems with measurements and direction. The remaining daylight was quickly fading. The three, venturing deep into the forest, came across an overly large snowman standing alone and eerily. No one expected to see a snowman. Its presence felt strange in the silence of the forest. Jade moved forward to chop down a tree, while she waited behind, looking around carefully and cautiously. She looked more closely. She cautiously glanced over her shoulder. The snowman was already seemingly closer, but logically, it should not have moved. To her shock, the snowman grew legs and stood threateningly in the snowy forest. She froze. Grows in distrust, choking on sudden fear after seeing the snowman move. Panicking, she rushed to Jade, explaining the creature's movement and this unnatural transformation as if it had come to life. Instead of breaking everything, they froze, hesitating, unsure if the snowman was made by the innkeeper. Returning to work, they chose a huge tree to cut down for firewood for delivery. Suddenly, the friendly snowman turned into a monster and lunged at Jade. They realized too late, the snowman disguised itself to hide its terrifying true form. As the monster approached, they prepared for battle, casting spells and coordinating a desperate defense. The beast resisted her magic. Jade stepped forward, decisively intercepting it before the damage could catch up. Without hesitation, Jade rushed forward and delivered a powerful blow to the monster's body, which was already advancing. Jade blocked the heavy fists of the snowman, dashed aside, dodged skillfully, and then prepared for a strong counterattack. His powerful strike hit precisely. The clash ended with a dazzling shock and sudden silence. While they celebrated the victory, she noticed that Jade was hiding her hand, clearly injured during the fight. Instead of accepting magical help, Dorami insisted on becoming stronger through her own efforts. After a long trek through the snow, they finally finished gathering and delivered the firewood to the village. Dorami hoped to become stronger so that someday Garnet would proudly acknowledge her transformation. Jade secretly also longed for Garnet's praise. She remembered how she once admired his strength. Memories of Garnet did not leave Jade as they continued dragging the firewood through the forest. Finally, they noticed a small wooden cabin and headed toward it, the firewood handles in their hands, of course. He looked up when the cabin door creaked open, revealing a person waiting inside. Wrapped in a hooded cloak, Aisha heard her own voice, who had come to her door. The steps came quickly, but anxiety did not leave. Something about Yuki's presence seemed distant and strangely heavy. Her eyes suddenly widened, her face froze in mid-thought as if she recognized something long forgotten or truly terrifying. Without hostility, confusion hung in the air. They clarified, their task came directly from the tavern owner. The mention of old kindness that helped clear the snow seemed to soften her temper a little, only for a moment. A warm meeting surprised them. She treated them to milk and gave shelter, confessing that visitors were a rare event. Yuki kept her hood on. She said it was just sensitivity bothering her, but something about it felt off. Dawarami told about her adventures with all her might and about practicing magic too, and asked about the quiet forest Dukanost Yaki. With confidence, Dawarami showed her adventure badge and Yuki reacted with distrust, silently staring at her achievements. Dawarami. Reimai told Jade about her strength and kindness, trying to ease Yuki's caution towards them. Feeling the tension, Jade urged Dawarami to tell stories. Yuki listened attentively but still restrained a guarded laugh. Inside the small wooden hut, it became cozy. A smile finally broke out on Yuki's face. Before that, it had been unreadable. Sunset approached, they thanked her for the rest and warm drink, then got ready to leave. No words, Yuki silently watched. Her gaze lingered on them until the door quietly closed behind. As soon as they stepped back, Yuki stopped them, convulsively gripping their sleeve with trembling hands. Without explanation, she begged them to stay the night and her gaze froze both urgency and fear. When two travelers were already preparing to leave, the receptionist quickly caught up with them, noticeably worried. She insisted that they stay for the night. Her face became firm despite the cold that gripped. At first, they refused. When they spoke about spending the night at the inn, her warning about the approaching blizzard made them stop. Seeing the danger and understanding how far it was to the tavern, they quietly considered what was offered to them. Smiling radiantly, the young woman finally agreed on their behalf, warmly accepting the shelter that was offered to them. The hut welcomed them with warmth. The host promised a hearty stew to warm them from the cold. The old kitchen burst with laughter as they cooked together, and the dish quickly blossomed with smiles and brought comfort to everyone. While the blizzard raged outside the window, the young girl calmly lay under thick blankets in a warm bed. Their guard quietly thanked the host, who reassured him with a gentle smile and kind words. Watching her sleep, they remembered how happily she once helped her. Joy shone in every story they told. He quietly expressed gratitude for the day they met and cherished every shared adventure from that very moment. The tavern hostess listened silently and, touching with her hand, looked at the girl beside her. She was sleeping peacefully. When he suggested telling more, she asked if he really felt confident about it. Smiling, he confirmed his desire to know everything, and she gladly accepted every word he offered. By the fire, they spoke quietly together while he told her story, full of both hardships and joy. The innkeeper acknowledged his role as guardian, and her voice softened as the girl murmured in her sleep. He turned away in surprise, and her gentle smile hid something deeper behind kind eyes. She sharply inhaled and fidgeted embarrassedly, trying to cover the slip while he questioned what exactly she had just said. Embarrassed, she insisted it was a misunderstanding, but he did not believe her excuse. Left alone with her own thoughts, she quietly wondered if her feelings had become too obvious to hide. Curious, he asked if she was the mother of that girl, hesitantly, but he felt there was something more between them. She was caught off guard. She got scared and began to refuse, denying any strong attachment despite the obvious emotional reaction. He quietly pressed, pointing out her mistake, and used another name, but she nervously recoiled. She insisted they were not related, recalling how that girl once lived with another woman far from here. Watching her deny it, he felt pain in her eyes, something she still could not admit aloud. He calmly assured her that it was so, and it immediately became clear he already knew the true likeness of the girl. When the form confused her, she asked if he knew, but he gently promised to keep everything secret and assured that he had no bad intentions. Her wary expression softened, but uncertainty still remained as she slowly lowered her gaze into silent reflection. She turned to the sleeping girl and calmly, without any readable emotion, watched her. Returning to earlier moments, she admitted the girl's trust in him was genuine and deserved. She decisively bowed her head, finally ready to trust him completely. Revealing her true self, she stood straight and calm, no longer hiding behind hesitation. She confessed that she was a white dragon, and the girl's mother decided to openly share her past. She told about the harsh life of dragons, constant danger, territorial wars, and the need to escape to survive. Explaining her incomplete transformation, she admitted that she had distanced herself from the pair even before giving birth on this land. He listened silently, impressed by her sudden frankness and the weight carried in each of her words. She allowed her husband the freedom to remain a dragon, although her heart pulled her toward humanity. She decided that it was safer that way and chose a human life for her daughter away from constant threats. She admired human conveniences, their food and comfort, even if her husband was against it. And watching her daughter sleep peacefully, she barely smiled and felt relief. She had helped shape this happiness. She explained her choice to separate because she feared that her dragon traits would endanger the child. He pondered her quiet burden and had no idea how long she had carried it silently, without complaint. Curious, he asked about the girl's real name and learned that it had once been completely different. The mother asked him not to use it, preferring the name the girl now loved. Softly smiling in her sleep, the girl was no longer bound to the past, only to love. She gently asked him to continue caring for the girl, and her voice was firm in quiet hope. He agreed without hesitation, then offered for her to live with him again, promising protection under local law. As reliable support, he promised a home or a free plot nearby, resolutely seeking to reunite mother and daughter. She refused the offer, choosing distance, and asked him to keep the truth secret from the girl. The woman asked for her identity to be kept secret. Her voice was calm but firm. She restrained her emotions. Lying down, she explained her reason. Her daughter had goals that needed to be realized. Her appearance could embarrass them. She revealed the girl's dream to follow her path and grow into the fame of a famous adventuress. The listener's eyes widened. He grasped the weight of her plea and understood the price of her sacrifice. Bowing quietly, she made one last request to continue guiding the girl without revealing the truth. With a slight smile, Jade accepted the request, promising to responsibly protect and guide the girl. The next conversation suddenly became urgent. A traveler named Onyx mysteriously disappeared within the Ice Kingdom. When the scarred, muscular man was mentioned, Jade recognized him and her face immediately tightened with concern. She hesitated but admitted, 12 years ago she met someone by the name he mentioned and was not sure it was really him. Before answering further, she paused, then began recalling the meeting that happened before her pregnancy by Durrami. While recovering from mild frostbite, she remembered boarding a train in search of medicine for treatment. This journey led her to a helpful stranger. He recognized her symptoms and offered a cure. Pure Jade, connecting the details with the description of potion purchases in Kulu records, was certain the man was Onyx. Although his destination remained unknown, she remembered one important detail he shared about his plans. With a serious expression, she revealed his intention to track and tame the dangerous Medusa. Jade froze, stunned, imagining how the danger of the Medusa could turn anyone to stone with a single glance. To prepare, he and his companion returned to the Sundal monarchy and arrived earlier than planned. Despite the cheerful mood, Jade remained cautious. Even he was not immune to the magic of the Medusa. They devised a plan with lava potions and explosives capable of melting stone from the core of the Medusa, its key elements. The Medusas had no physical endurance. Their territory was bordered by victims turned to stone, creating a deadly battlefield. To avoid harming bystanders, they had to lure the creature outside, and the risk sharply increased. Jace feared that Onyx might fail the plan halfway, but the chance of success still existed if everything was executed flawlessly.